Welcome back to Anamwada 4. Support the author. The Dragon Guard by Lexterer. What if Izuku was a dragon guard of Ryukyu harem with Mirko? Let's begin. Midoriya Izuku has always been characterized as someone extremely positive, hardworking, and firm in the face of what interests him. The pride of their parents in getting ahead despite having little at the beginning. It is not that they were a rich family by any means, they went through hardships that almost made them fall. Their child always encouraged them and helped them more, and that allowed them give him a good life and, what was more important, a good education. Graduated with honors from a good university, his boy finally spread his wings and spread flight away from the nest and the protection of his beloved parents to live his life. He lived in a fairly small and very cheap apartment. It was enough for the moment, and of course for his dreams it was just the beginning. With this freedom also came new responsibilities that he gladly accepted. He was not very picky about challenges, and much less he was not one to back down from a difficulty, which was exactly what he was suffering, since he did not seem to have any luck in obtaining jobs. Or rather stable jobs. Although she went from one job to another, she did not last long due to their nature, and although it bothered her, she still did not stop until she received a call from a great friend who had done quite well. Mina Ishido, a rather effervescent and cheerful girl who could liven up even the darkest day. When they met, she worked as a babysitter for many of their classmates' children. She was very skilled with childcare, and that led her to have her own babysitting service, looking for people who share her passion for caregiving, and it had turned out well. She took the opportunity that her friend offered her and was just about to have her first job. According to Mina, it wouldn't be very complicated, and if she was lucky enough she could even be hired more by this same person. Whoever hired babysitting services did not leave much information beyond the address of the place and few other aspects that should be given, whether it was a child with an illness or something that was specifically needed. Fortunately it was none of that, just very closed. Izuku apartment 113 looked at the address again before looking at the door in front of him, and of course at the number there was "Yes, it's this one." Rang the bell, waiting patiently for them to open. For a moment was heard from inside the apartment. "Izuku, this building shows that they are people with a lot of money. I hope it goes well for me." He let out a sigh, trying to calm down. "Yes, who is it?" A blonde woman opened the door. Izuku noticed her quite tense and with clear signs of trouble. "Izuku babysitting service." Happy Rabbit smiled calmly at the woman, who seemed calmer. "Thank you for arriving so quickly. Please come in." He stepped aside, letting the freckled man go through what he considered a rich man's home with so much space there was. "I didn't think it would take so little time to send someone. Usually when I call a babysitter they have me waiting for too long," he explained as he walked back to his room to finish getting ready. "Izuku, the service is something new and little known, so it is quite likely that we will be free, or at least for the moment." He spoke without leaving the large room of the apartment. "It's perfect for my situation." The woman came out again. This time she looked more radiant and much more ready to leave. "Izuku, who will I take care of?" He spoke with encouragement to the woman, who walked to a table near the door taking some keys. "My daughter, I'm sorry I couldn't specify more when I requested your service, but as you could see it's not that I have much time, and she can't leave herself alone." She just approached the freckled man, spreading a piece of paper. "It's all that's necessary in case of emergency." "Izuku, you have an illness that you're going through, a cold or something?" he asked, looking at the numbers. There were none. "He is in very good health." The freckled man nodded. "Izuku can leave it in my hands." Miss Tatsumath blonde smiled, relieved. "Ruka, thank you for coming." He walked back into the hallway, this time towards his daughter's room. "Honey." Upon entering he looked at his daughter, who had a frown and a pout. He didn't like the idea of Mom. The babysitter arrived, approached the little girl with hair as golden as the mother. "I don't want to go out," he spoke, turning around and refusing to get out of bed. "Ryuka, honey, we already talked about this." She sat on the edge of the bed, looking with regret at her little treasure. "I can't leave you alone at home, and your Aunt Rumi can't always take care of you. I hired someone because I'm afraid of what might happen to you." "You don't trust me," he murmured sadly. "Ryuka, honey, accidents happen. It's not about me not trusting you. It's about protecting you, because you are all I have." He caressed his daughter's head, which relaxed a little. "It won't be for long. I'll go to work, and as soon as I can I'll come home, okay?" "Good." She gave in to her mother, who carried her to go again with the babysitter. "Ryuko, I am sorry for the delay." She smiled at the freckled man, who was looking at the beautiful decoration of the place. "She is the one you have to take care of." She showed her daughter, who looked at the freckled man, who smiled sideways. "It's a living broccoli." He pointed to the freckled man, embarrassing his mother and causing the green-haired man to laugh. "Ryuko Ryuta, don't say things like that." He scolded his girl, who tilted her head confused. "That's rude." But it's true, he defended himself by making his mother sigh. Ryukyu, I am very sorry. The freckled man smiled as if nothing had happened. Izuku, don't worry, she's just telling somewhat uncomfortable truths. She seconded the girl who clung a little to her mother. Hello little one. The girl hid her face in her mother's neck who caressed her back. She doesn't usually separate much from you, right? Ryukyu is very attached. He's afraid of people he doesn't know. The freckled man nodded as the blonde took the girl down. Ryuta, he's the one who will take care of you, don't do any harm, okay? The girl looked at her mother and then at the freckled man before sticking to her mother's leg. Ryuta, Izuku, Ryuta-kun. The girl looked at the talking broccoli again with some fear. Tell me, are you hungry? The girl reflected before her belly roared, making her turn red like a tomato. A little, he murmured embarrassedly. Izuku, tell me, what do you like to eat? The girl looked at her mother who caressed her messy blonde hair. Like cookies, she spoke fearfully. Izuku, would you like to help me prepare cookies? The girl nodded without hesitation. Can you tell me where the kitchen is? The girl hurriedly grabbed the freckled man by the sleeve of his shirt and almost dragged him towards the kitchen. Ryukyu, her daughter, was easy to convince, which worried her a little. Izuku, don't worry, Miss Tatsuma, I'm here to take care of Ryuta while you do your job, I assure you. With the girl nearby, Ruka, thank you very much. She looked quite relieved that she hadn't even stopped to ask the boy's name. Izuku, Midoriya Izuku smiled calmly as the woman turned red. Mom, don't goth. Girl clung to her mother again who looked at her feeling sad for leaving her alone. Izuku, Ryuta-kun, do you think we'll make cookies for when your mom comes? The girl looked at him curious about the idea. So you would be celebrating that she returned after such a long day at work. Do you like the idea? Make cookies for mom, he murmured and then smiled. If I want to, said, running towards the freckled man. Izuku, good, but first she has to go out because otherwise they wouldn't be celebrating. The girl was surprised as she turned to her mother. Goodbye, mommy, he said, smiling, leaving his mother surprised again. Ruka, goodbye darling. Smiling, he left the kitchen, leaving the new babysitter and his daughter. Letting out a sigh, Izuku left the cookies on the table while he rested and looked at all the mess made in the kitchen. Teaching a child how to make his favorite dessert was not an easy thing. They made a lot of mess by doing things step by step while the infant became very frustrated for not making it the first time. Yet Izuku encouraged her not to give up so easily, and so very slowly she managed to get the girl to make cookies with chocolate chips with his help, and now he ate them with a proud smile on his face. Izuku, were they delicious? The girl nodded, eating one more. Try not to eat too many or else your mother won't have any. The girl nodded, eating the last cookie. Ryuta, thank you for teaching me, smiled with some embarrassment. Izuku, it's nothing, he smiled at the girl as he prepared to clean up the mess they had left in the kitchen. Ryuta, mom will be coming soon, right? He asked, scared. Izuku, of course, if you want we can call her in a while. The girl's eyes shone before she nodded with joy. You feel the smiles much more than the faces, say Ryuta. Chan, the girl smiled with a blush. No, you had separated much from your mother before? The girl looked down. Ryuta, mom takes care of herself a lot, she spoke quietly, fearing being scolded. She doesn't usually take me many places, and I usually stay with Aunt Rumi. Booty, always miss her. Izuku, is this the first time you've been left with a babysitter? The girl nodded nervously. I understand. She continued her cleaning work while the girl looked at the cookies they had made. Tell me, Ryuta-kun, the girl looked at him. Do you like movies? Ryuta, a lot, he spoke with a smile. Izuku, do you want to see a movie after I finish here? The girl nodded. Ryuta, but mom doesn't like me going out. That discouraged him a little. Izuku, oh careless, surely we can find a way to watch a movie. Some preference? The girl got emotional, nodding to her caregiver. Ryuta, let's watch dragon movies, he said happily. Izuku, well, dragons they will be. Getting too far from her daughter was not easy for Ryuko Tatsuma at all. Her little girl, who was only 4 years old, was entirely her world, and it always broke her heart to have to leave her alone when she went to work. The bills did not pay themselves, much less the necessary expenses of his daughter. He was happy to think of her and her adorable smile. Unfortunately this time Rumi couldn't go take care of her, stuck on a business trip across the ocean. Obviously he had his doubts about leaving her with a stranger, but the person he hired didn't look bad, and the reviews the babysitting agency had weren't bad either. In the 4 hours he was looking, he was the one who suited him best. The boy they sent didn't look exactly like she was expecting a babysitter, and for a few seconds she hesitated to call the agency again to ask for a babysitter change, but it gave her the benefit of the doubt and showed her to be quite capable of calming her down, daughter, and distract her, which was what she was looking for. If she thought about her daughter again, she wanted to return home, but first she had to finish things in the company. It was not easy to be the leader of a large company, and even less so with her new product shortly after leaving. Ryuko, how could I use a coffee now? She murmured, sitting in her chair while reviewing various reports that came to her. How will you be? She murmured, looking at a photo of her daughter and hers on her third birthday, adorably dressed as a princess. "See Mrs. Tatsumi, he is here." His secretary spoke through the answering machine, leaving the atmosphere quite cold. "What am I doing?" she asked fearfully before the subject she was talking about. Story continues below. "Ryuko, call security and get him out of here. He has no right to set foot here," he ordered seriously. Understood. He spoke with fear, leaving the atmosphere just as tense. "Ryuko, how does he think?" she murmured to herself with a serious face. Lately she was more present than usual and was really starting to be annoying. Ryuko opens the damn door. A whip was heard on the other side, making the woman sigh, who got up with all the tranquility in the world and walked towards the door. "Ryuko, I don't understand what you're doing here. You have a restraining order. Do you really want to go to prison for that?" He spoke completely calmly. He had the whole situation under control. "She's my daughter too. I have the complete right to see her." He knocked on the door again, almost breaking it. "Ryuko, you lost that right the moment you left her abandoned to go drinking," spoke resentfully, leaving the man silent. "Things weren't like that and you know it," he spoke seriously and a little embarrassed. "Ryuko? Because what I know is that they found you drunk and with a lot of drugs in your system next to your coworker in a seedy hotel. Well, I broke my back to give her the best life she could have," he said with hatred, leaving the guy without an answer. "You are scum and I'm glad my daughter never has to meet you." The guy remained static while the guards arrived. "Sir, you have to leave the building," one of his guards spoke quite seriously, taking the man and leaving the woman there trembling with rage. "Ryuko, he leaned against the door and slid to the floor, which I stopped deserving this an open question that would probably never have an answer. Despite having low spirits due to the afternoon interruption, he was able to concentrate enough to finish his work as quickly as possible to go with his daughter. It was the only thing he needed at that time. Having his daughter in his arms and forgetting for a moment that he had some relationship with that being so disgusting and egocentric that the only thing he seeks is self-satisfaction. In any case, it was not the time to cry over the spilled milk. What was done, and seeing the positive side, she obtained her greatest treasure thanks to the bad things in her life, and she had just finished the day's work in the evening so she could prepare dinner again for her and her daughter and thank the babysitter for taking care of her all day. She just hoped that when she arrived there would not be a disaster, although it would not surprise her either. Her daughter was extremely lively and liked to draw a lot, so she could expect anything. "Ryuko, I am here," he announced once he left his shoes at the entrance and entered his home, which looked perfectly clean. "Ryuto, mommy." Her daughter jumped to receive her with great encouragement. "Ryuko, hello my girl, how was your day? Did you enjoy it?" The girl nodded with great joy. "Ryuta Izuku let me see many dragon movies and we saw how they train and how they like to take care of things and his daughter was quite excited that she couldn't fit in. Ryuko, did you have a good time?" He picked up his girl and they both went to the living room where they saw the freckled man organizing the coffee table. "Ryuta a lot." His mother smiled fondly. "Ryuko, hello Midoriya-san, thank you for taking care of." Ryuta bowed to the freckled man who felt embarrassed. "Izuku, it was nothing. Ryuta-kun is a very good girt and there was no problem." Wake up quite happy with her day. She is quite polite and very calm. "Ryuko, I'll pay you, just let me leave everything, okay?" The freckled man nodded calmly. "Izuku, by the way, Ryuta-kun made her some cookies. And I recommend eating them as dessert with the dinner I made." The woman stopped for a moment and turned to look at him. "Ryuko, did you make dinner?" The freckled man nodded with some embarrassment. "Izuku, it was Ryuta-kun's idea. She thought it would be a good idea to thank her for a great job as a mother." The blonde looked at her daughter who smiled with an adorable blush. "Ryuko, my sweet girl," hugged her girl once again before leaving her on the ground. "Thank you very much, Midoriya-san, I really appreciate the gesture." "Izuku, it was nothing." The woman withdrew for a moment before returning with an envelope. "Ryuko's pay for good service." The freckled man took the envelope and put it in his jacket. "Izuku, thank you very much. When I need to take care of this adorable girl again we will gladly do it." Smiled at the woman who nodded. "Without further ado I leave Tatsumi-san." Ryuta-kun bowed to mother and daughter before leaving the apartment. It had been an excellent first day. Mina looked at her friend in disbelief as he prepared a coffee and continued talking about the great things that had happened to him in recent days. She had forgotten how easy the green-haired man was for good luck. She already saw it when they were at university, how everything seemed to be going well for him, especially that effort he put in. Arrivals at the last minute, purchases that seemed impossible and even fanciful, he got used to it, but it was still impressive. Mina, sometimes I seriously consider that you are a divine being who comes to laugh at mortals, he commented as the freckled man sat down, leaving 2 cups on the table in front of him. Izuku, come on, it's not that big of a deal, they probably gave me so much money for some mistake or for doing extra things. He tried to excuse himself again with all the good things that were happening. Plus you know me a lot, Mina. You know that I focus 100% when I'm on a project. Mina, yes. That's why I hired you, and the truth is I didn't expect you to do so many things in just 1 week that you're here. She drank her coffee and looked quite seriously at her friend. I hired you to be a babysitter, not to that you are a secretary, advisor, and advertising. His friend scratched the back of his neck with some shame. Izuku, Mina, I don't like to stay still. If I can help you with something I will. You have something incredible here and you are knowing how to take advantage of it a lot. I just wanted to contribute a little more. The Pinkette sighed, drinking more of her coffee. Mina, and the worst of all is that you reject the money I offered you for all that. His friend smiled tensely. Izuku, I did it because I wanted to, it's not something you have to pay for, plus you'll probably use that money to invest in your entire project, right? Her friend drank the coffee, remaining silent. Mina, thank you for supporting me so much, he murmured, feeling bad for all the work the freckled man was doing that didn't belong to him. With everything organized, the applications for nannies began to rain much more frequently than before, just as the vacancies began to fill up, so almost overnight Mina went from having 6 people as nannies, not counting Izuku, to almost 20, which he really liked. With Izuku in his project, he was literally assured of a good future thanks to the freckled man's gifts. It was easy to interview people. I had to admit how impressive it was to see the freckled guy asking all kinds of questions and revealing all kinds of things to many people who seemed too suspicious and untrustworthy. In the end they achieved a fairly stable squad, so things started to take away. Just 2 weeks after the green-haired man arrived, and with the entire squad ready, Mina once again received a request from the same woman as Izuku's first job, this time asking him specifically. It's not that she didn't want to send him, just that he was quite busy with other children to take care of. The green-haired man knew how to win hearts very easily, which meant that he had many clients who specifically asked him, Mina, Izuku, do you have time to take care of a girl for a whole day? Even so, I wanted to fulfill this client's whim, mainly because of the pay they received. Izuku, a whole day? He looked at the Pinkette for a moment and then at the monitor where she was. What day do I need it? The Pinkette smiled tensely. Mina, tomorrow. The freckled man looked at the screen again. Izuku, tomorrow I have to take care of a baby at night, but during the day I'm free. Who is it? The Pinkette let out a sigh. Mina, Mrs. Tatsuma wants you to take care of her daughter again, although this time she did provide a lot of information. Passed a leaf to the freckled man. Izuku, I see. He smiled, looking at the paper and then returned it to the pink-haired girl. In that case I'm happy to take care of Ryukyu. Pink-haired girl felt quite a relief. Mina, I am sorry to give you so much work. The freckled man smiled as if that were nothing. Izuku, don't worry, it's my way of paying you to give me jobs. You really saved me from a bind. Mina, the pink-haired girl smiled. She had luck on her side. 10 in the morning the next day arrived quite quickly from the perspective of Ryuko, who had prepared everything for today in advance. With the revelation of her new smartwatch and a couple of other things, she would be totally busy, and of course Rumi had not yet returned from her business trip. Another way of saying that she had run away again. So she hired the services of babysitters, and specifically the one last time, since he didn't think someone new would be good for him. Daughter, I had to go little by little if I wanted to take her to school. Ryuta, can't you work from here today? Commented the little girl after I gave her a bath and put her red dragon pajamas on. Ryuka, today is something important for the company, something quite innovative will come out that will give us a lot of money to spend on many things for both of us. He picked up his daughter and gave her a big hug. But don't worry, call for someone to take care of you. He caressed his girl, who looked at him with some emotion. Ryuta, Izuku will return? He smiled at his mother, who nodded. Ruka, that's right, so you have to behave as well as last time. The girl nodded determinedly before the doorbell rang. It must be him. She left the girl on the floor and went towards the door to open it for the babysitter. Izuku Tatsumasanth freckled man smiled at the blonde who seemed calmer. Ruka, thank you for arriving so early. Midoriya-san stepped aside to let the freckled man pass, who this time came with a backpack. Midoriya-san, what are you carrying there? Izuku, I don't think it's a good idea for Ryuta-kun to only have the television, so I brought something to do and I know he might like it. He opened the backpack showing a couple of craft things. Ryuta crafts? The girl came out looking with interest at the freckled man. Izuku, that's right, would you like to make a dragon? The girl's eyes lit up. Ryuta, yes. The girl was already excited about the idea of the freckled man. Ruka, well, just make sure you don't get too dirty, okay? He caressed his daughter's hair, who nodded. He left everything in your hands, Midoriya-san. He retired to his room while letting the babysitter work. Izuku Komonthi both went to the living room ready to create a great adventure for the girl who was taking care of what her mother had just arranged to go out. The auditorium was completely full and the excitement inside began to scare her in front of so many people. Despite the years she had been running the company, she couldn't get used to being under all eyes, so her nerves were very strong. She had no reason to be so nervous since she trusted all the work that had been done to get to this moment. He looked one last time before his speech began. He looked once again at his notes, trying to remember well what he was saying, although he would surely have his head so focused on everything else that he would surely end up improvising, as always happened to him. Looking outside seriously. I notice you tense. The blonde remained silent. Ryuko, what are you doing here? She spoke without looking at the guy behind her. That I can't come and wish luck to the love of my life? He asked with the grace he never possessed. Ruko, how curious. I don't see your girlfriend around here, she responded coldly, leaving the tense guy behind her. How many times will I have to apologize for you forgiving me? He asked with pain in his words. Ryuko, the numbers are not enough for that. He turned and looked at his ex with a serious face. We both know that you are not here for a pathetic apology. Kiko, what do you want? He asked with a serious look and firm posture. Kiko, you offend me. Ryukin, I'm not like that. He smiled, trying to convince the blonde. Ryuko, let me guess, your girlfriend of the moment sent you to the trash and you come to see what you can get out because you're a damn leech. Was starting to get out of her mind. Kiko, what a sharp tongue. That's why I liked you. Alothi winked at her, causing a withering look on the woman. Ryuko, long before I called security. Me. Blonde seemed scared by it. Kiko, if you really wanted me out you would have already called your gorillas, but no, you like this silent dance we are having. He took a step, at which point the blonde pressed a button that was nearby. What's up, Ryukin? Wasn't our time worth anything to you? He spoke with a somewhat broken voice. Ryuko, the only thing you were good for is taking money from me and giving me my daughter. Other than that you were nothing more than a waste of time, he responded, making enough time for it to arrive. Kaigo, so I'm good for something, huh? The woman continued, angry, counting the seconds until her guards arrived. What do you think if after this we ran away for something to eat? Who knows, maybe I can even give you another treasure. He smiled flirtatiously at the woman who was at his limit. Rukoyori, disgusting. Was about to start a dispute when his guards appeared. Sir, access is not allowed here. The blonde smiled at the woman who was quite upset by the guy's words. Kika, don't worry, I'm leaving. Calmly left there, followed by the guards, leaving a very tense Ryuko, who had come to look for. Despite the small incident, Ryuko still managed to maintain her composure and appearance to reveal her newest project in the world. Being called out by the people who were there, she knew how to keep her personal problems at bay from her work and, above all, avoid a terrible disaster. At some point she even forgot that she had been visited by her stupid ex. He spoke to several investors about his next big project and others in development. The hours began to pass and soon the long-awaited event had come to an end without many setbacks. He managed to make it clear that his product was quite good, and finally coming out of it he could go with his beloved girl. He had the perfect idea for dinner. I just needed to buy some things and buy some dessert because it wasn't good for that. Story continues below. So it took her a little longer than she initially thought, but she had finally managed to get a good bucket of ice cream to enjoy with her daughter. Of course she wasn't asleep. She really hoped she wasn't sleeping. She also had to give some apologies to the babysitter for taking a few minutes longer than he had initially agreed upon. He hoped that the freckled man would not be so serious about the times, because it was likely that at that time he would be very irritated by the tardiness. He only had to pray that it would not be like that. Kaigo, so you live here? About to open the door, the blonde stood cold, looked to the side, and there was her ex with a bawdy smile. Ryuko, you shouldn't be here. She got serious with the bags in her hand, not knowing what to do in this situation. Kiga, come on Ryukyu, don't play hard to get. He got a little closer to the woman who stood in front of the door defending that last line of defense. Not so much show is necessary. He got a little closer, putting the blonde against the door and making a strange sound in it. Ryukyu's no show, stay away from me and my daughter, she said seriously, trying not to look scared. Kigosh is also my daughter. The woman clenched her fists angrily. Ryuko's not, you've never been his father, responded angrily. Kigoid can always be started, extended his hand to take the blonde when the door she was defending opened, causing her to fall backwards right into someone's chest. Izuku, whoa, that was close. The blonde looked up, meeting the green-haired man's face. Are you okay? He smiled kindly at the blonde who was a little stunned. Ryuko, perfectly, he murmured, barely audible to the freckled man. Kigo, I understand, looked at the freckled man with some anger before smiling as if nothing had happened. Izuki's something offered to you, sir? He smiled, hugging the blonde, trying to make her feel safe. Kigo, he was just talking to Ryukyu, tried not to make a fuss. Izuku, it's not what it seemed, if I'm honest. A strange guy cornering a woman at his neighbor's door. The blonde blinked in surprise. Kigo, is this your house? Pointed to the freckled man, who smiled confidently. Izuku, I like to wear simpler things than a stretched office suit. I don't like to be entangled with appearances that are irrelevant. The blonde held on to him, trying to regain her composure. I ask again, what is supposed to happen? What was he doing to Tatsumi-san? Kigo, we were just being serious, smiled calmly Izuku. I don't think the cameras say the same. The blonde seemed cold with that phrase. Would you like to leave this building, please? I may be wrong to say things without context, but it seriously seemed like I was harassing a good lady, and that's something you can deduce is very frowned upon. He smiled innocently at the blonde who left like hell from there. That was close, he murmured tiredly before feeling how they squeezed his arm. Tatsumi-san? Ryuko, I was afraid, she murmured to the freckled man who pulled her inside while he closed the door. Where is Ryuta? He looked around without seeing her. Izuku, Ryuta-kun is in her room. She wanted to sleep a little before her arrival. She spoke calmly before sitting in front of the woman who looked like a mess. Would she like to talk about what just happened? Ryuko looked at the freckled man for a moment before his trembling handsome. Izuku, you want me to bring a glass of water so you can calm down? The woman looked at him and nodded. Well, the best thing would be to put those bags in the kitchen. Allow me. Without further ado, he took the woman's message and went to the kitchen, quickly returning with the glass. Here you go. Ruka, thank you. I quickly drank half the water before leaving it on the table. I'm sorry I saw that. Izuku, not quite the opposite. I'm sorry for reacting so late. I don't think that situation is easy. The woman smiled sideways. Who was that guy? Ryukyu was my ex. He spoke with some fear. Izuku, well, the woman nodded slowly. They ended badly, I guess. Ryuko, quite not to be distrustful, but I wouldn't like to talk about it. It's just that lately it has more presence everywhere I am, and I was afraid it could happen. She began to think about everything the blonde would have done if he had entered, what he had done to his girl, and Izuku, Tatsumi-san, the freckled man put his hand on her shoulder, bringing her back to reality. He's already gone. He can't hurt her, okay? Ryuko, if I only know. He let out a sigh. It's been a long day. Thank you for helping me. Midoriya-san smiled weakly at the freckled man, who smiled as if he were a hero. Izuku, don't worry, I like to help. The woman nodded, leaving a much calmer atmosphere. Mina looked at her friend quite curiously. When he arrived the next day after taking care of Mrs. Tatsuma's girl, he was quite distracted. Many of the companions he had, and they went to ask for some indication, found him with the clouds looking at the wall. It was clear that something had happened in that house, and she would not deny that her gossiping streak was shown with this mystery, but it would not be correct to get involved in a matter like that, mainly because she was no longer such a gossip. She wanted to help her friend, and she did not know well how. Mina, hey Izuku, the freckled man continued in his world. Izuku, he put his hand on the green-haired man's shoulder, which reacted. Izuku, who? Mine? He rubbed his nose, trying to focus. Mina, are you feeling okay? If you are sick you can go home. The freckled man slowly denied. What is happening? Izuku, it's nothing. The pink-haired girl raised an eyebrow hesitantly. It's a problem that occurred yesterday when Tatsumi-san arrived from her event. She didn't really know what to do or if mother and daughter were okay. Mina, I understand. He sat in front of the freckled man, who looked quite distressed. Are you worried that something could happen to him? Izuku, that's what has me a little tense. I don't know if it happened again after that or if she did something to solve it. I would like to go, but I feel like I'm being very invasive with her. Her friend smiled sideways. Mina, you really can't stop being the superhero who saves us all, huh? He commented gracefully, earning the freckled man's curiosity. Izuku superhero? Her friend nodded. I don't consider myself a hero of justice. Mina, come on Izuku, since we were in university the only thing you did was help everyone who was in your way, me, Kirishima and even Monoma. Even though he hates you, the green-haired man looked around somewhat embarrassed. In my opinion you should ask. You always have words of support and a solution for problems that others may consider impossible. Yes, you may see how to stick your nose where they don't call you, but in itself it was your essence, being where they don't call you but they do need you. The green-haired man smiled with the pink-haired woman's words of encouragement. Izuku, thanks for talking to me. Mina, the pink-haired girl, smiled quite happily. Mina, I wasn't going to leave you there with a mental mess. We are friends. Can you lean on my shoulder when you need it, okay? The freckled man nodded more calmly. Well, now make the call before you return to your wall novel. Without further ado the girl left, leaving the freckled man's mind clearer. Izuku, okay. He clicked a couple of times on his computer, reaching for the information he needed before picking up his phone and starting to call the woman. This woman was taking a bath after she had a crazy day with her daughter. The times she went out with Ryuta were quite few since she separated from Kigo. She tried to keep her away from that man, so she always kept her at home, trying to reduce the chances of him meeting his father to a minimum. He could be somewhat cruel, but he really hoped that in due time he could let her out. When he was aware of the whole situation that his mother had to live through, aware that his father is a terrible and disgusting being who only seeks his own gain, but until then he kept outings to a minimum and even contacts as limited as possible. There were few people who knew about Ryuta, and he wanted it to continue like this to avoid anything. Today he had the great idea of going out with his daughter all day because he had made sure that Kigo couldn't get closer to his daughter, or at least not so easily. With his small dispute last week, he further expanded his order against the blonde, so he couldn't even get close to the building, much less 600 meters from her or her daughter. Thanks to the police, Ryuko knew that Kigo had tried to get a minimal visit with Ryuta, but the judge was not convinced by this thanks to all the past he had, so he was denied. Everything seemed to be going well. Ryuko, who, after her relaxing bath, she looked at her phone with a number she didn't recognize. What if she said? He didn't think anything at that moment, so the idea that it could be Kigo didn't even cross his mind. Izuku Tatsumei-san, is me Midoriya? The blonde looked surprised, walking to her bed and sitting down. Ryuko, Midoriya-san, what a surprise. She looked at the ceiling quite relaxed. Why do I owe her call? Izuku, I'm sorry if I'm calling at a bad time or if it's intrusive, but I seriously couldn't stay in doubt. The woman raised her eyebrow, curious about what the freckled man was saying. But can I know if he is okay? Ryuko, I am perfectly fine. Midoriya-san, why are you asking? A relaxed sigh was heard on the other end of the call. Izuku was worried about what that guy might do after that day. The woman became somewhat tense before settling into her bed better and smiling calmly. Ryuko, I appreciate the concern, Midoriya-san, but I'm totally fine. I already solved that issue. He looked out the door where his daughter was peeking out with great curiosity. Izuku, I'm glad to hear it. With that he felt a weight off his shoulders. Anything that happens, don't hesitate to call, okay? I may just be a babysitter, but I care about my clients. The woman smiled sideways, motioning for her daughter to come in, and of course she gladly did so. Ryuka, don't worry, that's how it will be. The girl went up to bed and hugged her mother, who began to brush her sweet girl's hair with her fingers. In fact, Midoriya-san, I would like to hire her services again. His daughter looked at him with great emotion. She liked her babysitter. Izuku Tatsumei-san, when would it be? He took paper and pencil and listened. Ryuko, like the other 2 times, I need you to take care of her all day. I can't work from home all the time. My presence in the company is necessary at least 1 day a week. The girl relaxed when her mother followed her caresses. Izuku, don't worry Tatsumei-san, I understand. It's a pleasure to take care of Ryuta. Camp woman smiled, looking at her daughter. Ryuko, tell me. Ryuko, yes? Being told that way reminds me of my mother and grandmother. He heard well how he upset the freckled man on the other end of the call. Izuku, of course Tatsuma does, I mean Ryuko-san. It's no problem, although it would take him a while to get used to calling her that. Ryuko, there is no reason to get tense. Midoriya-san, he showed that he is someone who is good at trusting. He smiled, looking at his girl, who was happy with the warmth that her mother gave off. Izuku, I am glad to know that. See you on the agreed day. Just be sure to send all the information, please. The woman smiled. She liked it when people were so dedicated to their work. Ryuka, sure. Her daughter stretched out her arm, trying to get to the phone. What's up, honey? Ryuta, I want to say goodbye too. He tried to reach for the phone again, so his mother put it to his ear. Goodbye, Izuku. He smiled happily. Izuku, goodbye Ryukin, see you soon. The girl nodded quite happily before the call ended. Since he started being a babysitter, Izuku always tried to change something when he took care of the children. With babies he always brought a new toy to help him recognize shapes or even help him walk. With slightly older children he always brought them some activity that was to their taste. He always tried to adapt to the child they had to take care of, and with little Ryuta knew perfectly well what to do. The little girl was a big fan of dragons, and in general of everything related to them, many fantasy books and many movies that she had for them in one way or another. She even had many stuffed animals of said mythical beings, although there was something that was missing, the girl. Izuku only saw that the girl had many references to the classic dragons that launched fire and were destroyers of cities and kingdoms, so she had to teach her that there was much more than just beings of destruction. She was going to teach her about the other types of dragons, the protectors, and the wise men, so he prepared himself with all the necessary things before appearing at Miss Tatsuma's apartment. Ryuko, wow, you arrived early today. Midoriya-san had barely gotten ready to go to work, nor had he prepared breakfast when the freckled man knocked on the door. Izukuri, the only one who hired me today, so that may be why, he commented calmly before moving on to the woman's home. Ryuko, if I'm honest, I like that you have so much dedication to your job. I've met many who don't even want to show up when they're seriously needed, he commented with some anger. He still remembered his ex and the problems he was in, that he got into when they worked together. Izuku, not all people have the same discipline or the same goal to dedicate ourselves so much to something. I am disciplined, which leads to dedication. The blonde smiled. She liked the green-haired man more every day. By the way, where is Ryukin? Ryuko, I haven't woken her up yet. She looked so tender asleep. Her daughter tended to move in bed and roll up on her own blankets, which made her become a ball of sleep. Izuku, surely, he smiled tensely before approaching the living room, looking at a small mess of books on the tablet. Ryuko, oh my head, I forgot to put this away. Approached the table taking a couple of books and then walked towards a nearby shelf. Izuku, they are basic mathematics books, he murmured to himself. Ryuko, Ryuta still doesn't learn numbers well and doesn't seem very interested, so at the moment the only thing I teach her is to write, although she doesn't like it very much either. Her daughter was stressful in that area. She didn't seem very excited to learn the basics. Izuku, Ryukin doesn't go to school, right? The woman nodded. And I don't think it's a good idea to pay private teachers for their distress. Ryuko, that's right, I have no choice but to teach her myself, or at least for now. I plan to enroll her in an academy as soon as she's old enough, but so far I'm the only thing she has to learn. She picked up a couple more books and he put them on the shelf. Izuku, can I ask why you don't send them to a school? The woman stayed still, meditating on the answer. It may help her relate to other people and encourage her to really learn. Ryuko, I'm aware of it, but... His ex's face came back to his mind. I'm a little scared, if I'm honest. The freckled man put a hand on his shoulder and smiled as much as he could to calm down the father. Ryuta is quite insistent, and I'm afraid that he will do something to him if he knows where he studies. Izuku, I understand. He decides to keep her away from the vast majority of things in case that guy does something to her. The woman nodded, touching the freckled man's hand in a self-reflection. Ryuko, if you are not interested in learning, I highly doubt that my plans can help, she murmured to herself, somewhat disappointed. Izuku, oh, you just have to work with what Ryuta likes. Janth woman looked at him confusedly, letting go of the boy. I guess I don't understand. If he uses what Ryuta likes and starts teaching him about what he likes, I like it. I could refer it to everything else. Ryuko, I think I'm very asleep if I don't understand it. I'm sorry, Midoriya-san. The freckled man smiled gracefully. Izuku, giving an example, Ryuta really likes dragons. If she teaches him about that, he could start teaching her stories about dragons and make her understand that for her to read them she needs to know how to read and write. In order to list them he needs mathematics, and so with what he wants to teach him. The woman looked at him with hope in her eyes. We usually learn better if we do what we like. If Ryuta likes dragons, why not take advantage of that? Ryuko, Midoriya-san is brilliant. He looked at him quite excitedly, embarrassing the freckled man a little. Izuku, just make sure you don't overwhelm Ryuta with too much information at once. She may get the opposite effect and end up hating what she loves. The woman nodded with a tender smile. Ruka, thank you. He looked at the clock on the wall. He had time, but it was running out. If you'll excuse me, I have to go make breakfast. He just went to the kitchen. Izuku, it's incredible what he does with the little time he has. It wasn't a secret, but at this point, the green-haired man was aware that the woman had a very high position in the company, so he could do something like this was quite surprising. Anyway, let's get Ryuta up. Went to the girl's room while the mother finished breakfast. It was one of the girl's best awakenings, with her babysitter and a tower of pancakes for breakfast. If she was a little sad that mom had to leave, but at least her babysitter was so amazing that she could barely notice how long mom I wasn't there with her. It felt pretty good that the freckled guy was there for when he was afraid or hungry. He had not met anyone other than his mother or Aunt Rumi, who treated him with so much affection. Not that he knew many people, but hey, of the few outside of his mother and aunt, the one he liked the most was Izuku. Ryuta, Izuku, what will we do today? She smiled excitedly at the freckled man, who caressed her hair quite calmly. Izuku, today I want to show you something that I am more than sure you will like very much. The girl smiled quite excitedly. Ryuta, what is it? What is it? He jumped in his place with quite a bit of emotion. Izuku, I'm going to show you dragons that you've never seen. The girl couldn't cope with the excitement. Luke opened a picture book, being very disappointed. Ryuta, but that's a snake. Pointed to the drawing of a strange snake with feathers on its head, making Izuku laugh a little. Izuku will see, Ryuta-kun, around the world there are many civilizations, and these civilizations had very different dragons. Not all of them have bat wings and they throw fire from their mouths. There are also many that are like that. He passed the leaf showing a fairly long snake with horns and mane. These types of dragons can manipulate water and skies, being able to unleash amazing storms, he said with great encouragement, attracting the girl's interest. Ryuta, sounds amazing. The freckled man smiled. Izuku, right? The girl nodded. Do you want to know more? The girl nodded again. Well then let's sit down, because there are many dragons to meet. Ryuta, Izuku, look what I did. The girl approached her babysitter, showing a drawing of an oriental dragon that he had shown her. Izuku, oh, that's amazing, Ryuta-kun. The girl smiled with a blush, quite proud of her drawing. You are a great artist. The girl felt how pride filled her chest with each compliment from the babysitter. Ryuta, I want to put it wherever mom sees it. She spoke excitedly. Izuku, leave that to me. Took the drawing and carefully left it on the table near the door where it would be impossible not to see it. Ryutato, you think mom likes it? She asked a little nervously. Izuku, I am pretty sure, because it's something you did and it's something she values a lot. The girl nodded, regaining her joy in a single momento. You want to continue drawing, or do you prefer to eat something? It was past noon and the girl would surely be hungry. Ryuta, I want to hear another dragon story, like the one about the tent. The freckled man giggled at the request. Izuku, you really liked that the carp turned into a dragon, didn't you? The girl nodded. She still didn't quite understand the reason behind something so crazy, but she liked it. It's good. What do you think if I tell you about a dragon princess, who to defeat the darkest evil did the impossible? The girl nodded, running to sit and listen. Ryuta, come. He loved to know more about the mythical beings that the freckled man told him about. Izuku, well, this story, like others, begins in a very, very distant place, whose name has already been forgotten. The girl moved her feet with emotion for each word said by the freckled man. In that place there was a kingdom commanded by a strong and kind woman who guided everyone with great love and affection. Ryuta, is she the princess? The freckled man nodded. Izuku, correct, Ryuta-kun. This princess lived in a moment of peace that seemed to have no end. Said princess was cared for by the strongest warrior in the entire kingdom, so they didn't usually mess with them much. She related calmly, or so, until a terrifying king appeared in the distance. Someone as big as a giant and with incredible powers that she used to take everything. The girl walked away a little scared. The terrifying king had heard that the princess possessed magic stones that would allow her to conquer everything. Ryuta's warrior will stop him, right? The freckled man smiled. Mew. Izuku, it wouldn't be easy for the warrior, so in a risky made the princess sent him away to prepare while she did everything possible to protect them all. The girl looked at the green-haired man with more interest, so she gathered her companions and they gave the power stones to face the terrifying king, trying to buy a lot of time. Ryuta, did they make it? The freckled man denied sadly. Izuku's king was very powerful, and in a quick movement he managed to get a stone from a friend very close to the princess, and increasing her power incredibly. The girl began to worry. They had to retreat, waiting for the right moment. Ryuta, the warrior? What happened to him? The freckled man smiled regretfully. Izuku's warrior could not face him, or at least not without the necessary power, and the princess knew that, so she ordered her companions to protect the powerful stones and wait for the right moment while she made one last sacrifice for everyone. Ryuta, what did the princess do? The girl asked worriedly where this story was going. Izuku, in an act of hope and trust to the warrior, The princess ate her stone of power which made her become a dragon for eternity. The girl seemed surprised in her last moment of sanity. The only thing that came to her mind were the memories with her friends and with the warrior like that she cried her last tears making heaven itself cry at such an act of courage. Ryuta, did he do that? Spoke sadly Izuku because it was the way to make a sword like no other. It took a long time but she managed to create a weapon capable of facing the terrifying king. Delivered to the warrior and with her companions they were able to defeat the king. The girl looked at him and then to the ground thinking, Ryuta, but what about the princess? It won't go back to normal. The freckled man smiled sweetly. Izuku's warrior never gave up on his journey to make the princess human again. That cost him his life. The girl no longer liked this story. In the face of such an act of loyalty the world took pity on the warrior and so on. After his death he rose like another dragon flying following his beloved who still cries for her warrior. Ryuta, did they meet again? The freckled man nodded. Izuku, it is said that when it rains and is sunny at the same time it is because both are united. The princess's tears of happiness and the light released by the warrior is what causes it. Ryuta, but that doesn't happen much, complained. With a pout. Izuku, but it happens. They are in heaven being together in eternity. The girl smiled at that ending if she liked it. Ryuta, so yes, the green-haired man laughed. Izuku, no, come on, you're probably already hungry. The girl nodded, so she jumped to the floor and went to the kitchen followed by the freckled man ready to eat. Meanwhile, Ryuko received a rather unexpected visit from her best friend who had just arrived from one of her crazy, extremely long trips. It was a total surprise to see Rumi so soon after hearing her say that she would not return for a few years because something incredible came out of the other side of the ocean, although of course he said that with quite a few drinks on her and Ryuko didn't quite believe him. It was good to have her here once again even though it didn't seem like it. They were always very close and even when Ryuko got pregnant she wanted to break Kigo's neck more than she had for what she had done. It was a lovely thing to see how her best friend was willing to come to her defense when she was most devastated. Fortunately for Kigo he was able to resolve things peacefully and prevent Rumi from hunting him with everything he had. Ryuko, were you seriously the first person you thought of when you arrived? Her friend raised her shoulders disinterestedly, sitting in front of her to drink a juice. Rumi, what can I say? I missed the brat a lot, he responded quite calmly. Ryuko, she also missed her Aunt Rumi and her craziness when she takes care of her. The white-haired girl turned a little red. Rumi, did he tell you about that? Her friend denied without wanting to believe how innocent the first could become her friend sometimes. Ryuko, my daughter, she obviously tells me everything. Her friend fell on the table with disappointment. Rumi, we had a deal, whatever you did while I was away? Any news? The blonde looked at her computer thinking about whether to tell him about the babysitter. She knew how her friend would get that's a yes. What happened? Ryuko, Kigo came back. The white-haired girl got serious. She came here and wanted to claim to be with Ryuta. She also went to my event and tried to seduce me. I guess the girl she was with no longer gives her money and she thinks she can get something out of me. He closed his eyes trying to calm down. Rumi, that damn one, got up ready to go look for him and kick him and send him to the sun. Ryuko, at the moment it is under control, even Soul remain on alert for anything, she commented, returning to work. Rumi, by the way, if you're here, who's with the brat? The atmosphere got cold from one moment to the next. Ryuko, well, you'll see. Her voice hesitated, which the white-haired girl didn't like. One hired a babysitter. Her friend was static. You weren't there and you know I can't leave her alone. She's still very small and there were good reviews from that place and they sent me some good and I no longer knew what to say to convince my friend not to do crazy things. Rumi, I am going for the girl just came out quite calm, which in itself was more dangerous than if she came out in a rage. Ryuko, wait, Rumi. She ran after her friend. She wasn't going to let the white-haired girl do anything to the babysitter. Ryuko could not follow Rumi very far from her company, as it was the only day of the week in which she was in person. She had to resolve many problems and doubts that her employees had with the projects she had, in addition to many meetings that seemed eternal about things that could be resolved very easily. Time seemed eternal between everything. She felt every second that passed. Distressed by what her friend could do to the babysitter. When she got home, she cursed a lot for having given Rumi a key. Surely the freckled man was suffering physically and mentally, so Ryuko had already prepared apologies and monetary compensation for all the damage that her white-haired friend could cause. When his departure time arrived he heard nothing more from anyone else and left like hell directly to his apartment. 1001 situations occurred in his mind, each one more horrible than the last. It was no wonder, Rumi had a very strong character, and since he met her he had to get into fights. No matter the size of his opponent, he always saw her triumph, several times with more than a black eye but triumphant nonetheless. It was clear that Izuku wouldn't have much of a chance against someone this strong. There was precisely some traffic and an accident to end his luck. It is as if everything was against him to prevent him from coming home to control the disaster that had surely broken out, and in fact he was quite surprised not to see police patrols in the building once he arrived. He took the elevator that felt eternal until he reached his floor and ran towards his door, taking the knob with a sweaty hand. He opened the door without hearing anything because what they could say was worse than finding Rumi fighting with the freckled man. Rumiga. It was heard that he was coming from his daughter's room, so he hurried to drop his things, close the door and run to the little blonde's room. Ryuko, Rumi, you better not have done anything wrong, because otherwise. His voice got stuck in his throat when he looked inside the room. Rumi, do I have to be the rabbit? She shouted with shame, sitting on her girl's bed while the green-haired babysitter combed her hair and the girl placed false ears on her head. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi, you promised. He pouted tenderly at his aunt, who also pouted in response. Rumi, I don't remember that. He turned his gaze without wanting to take responsibility for his promise. Izuku, Rumizan, stay still, okay? He spoke very calmly, leaving the white-haired girl paralyzed. Rumi, as he looked down, feeling some fear in his body. Ryuko, what the hell is going on here? He murmured without believing what his eyes were witnessing. Rumi who? She looked to the side and was paralyzed. Don't look at Ryuko. She shouted to her friend who was paralyzed. Ryuta, mommy. The girl left her aunt and ran to hug her mother, who seemed completely gone. Rumi, this is not what it seems. She tried to go to her friend but was held by the head by the freckled man. Izuku, stay still. The white-haired girl looked down embarrassedly while the freckled man continued combing the girl's hair. Ryuko, what's going on? He murmured without wanting to believe what he wanted. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi was very stupid to Izuku, so as punishment she has to do everything I order, she said quite proudly, leaving the blonde mother even more confused. Ryuko, huh? She looked at her friend, who was very red when she was discovered. Rumi, what happened? Rumi, in my defense, a 2-against-1 is very unfair. Apologized very badly. Izuku, I remember that Rumizan abruptly entered Rikosan's apartment and tried to hit me in front of Ryutakin, making me cry. The blonde looked at her friend and then at her girl, who was smiling as if nothing was happening. Rikoso, Ryuta manipulated you? She took her girl in her arms, who hugged her immediately. Rumi, if that's what happened, was quick to clarify things. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi's nose is going to grow. He pointed to the white-haired girl, who became a little nervous. Ryuko, what exactly happened, honey? His girl smiled as if it were the most incredible thing he had ever seen. Ryuta, when Aunt Rumi came and tried to hit Izuku, he did bam and bam. She moved her arms imitating what had happened, and Aunt Rumi ended up on the ground, and then she got up, but Izuku paffed her and made her fall again, and then I was scared because Aunt Rumi said she was going to do bad things to her. To Izuku, and his mother looked quite surprised. Rumi, traitor brat, she thought with shame, while her friend looked at her with some disbelief. Ryuta, then they stopped fighting and let me eat ice cream, he said happily, leaving his mother quite impressed. Ryuko, wow, do you think if you go get more of that ice cream while I talk to Aunt Rumi and Midoriya-san? The girl nodded quite happily, so the blonde took down her daughter, who quickly went to the kitchen. Rumi. She spoke coldly. Rumihei, I'm the one who's suffering now. Your brat forces me to act like a rabbit in one of her games, he said with some anger and shame. Izuku really doesn't know when to stop, huh? He spoke with a rather kind smile which terrified the white-haired girl quite a bit. Ryuko, I am sorry this happened. Midoriya-san, Rumi is my best friend and loves Ryuta very much and knows what I've been through, so he usually protects her a lot. The freckled man denied finishing the white-haired girl's hairstyle. Izuku, don't worry, at the time I was scared, if I'm honest, but I'm not spiteful at all, and I can perfectly understand why he acted that way, even though I disapprove of the use of violence in front of children, he said with some irritation. Rumihei, I apologized. The freckled man turned around smiling, making the girl nervous again. Yes, whatever. Ryuko, I'm surprised she's so nervous, she's generally not afraid of anything. Her friend didn't say anything. Izuku, I guess he imposes himself when necessary, said calmly. Ryuko, I am grateful that something horrible didn't happen. The last time Rumi got too excited there were many injuries. The freckled man giggled while his friend snorted. Izuku, one can imagine it, she is someone strong, although quite uncontrolled. Just left the room to keep the girl company. Ryuko, anything you want to say now that your biggest fear has come out? Her friend let out a sigh, finally feeling calm. It's not to support hurting or adding fuel to the fire, but you are capable of knocking down people who are 4 times your size. Literally speaking, I can't believe that someone like Midoriya-san made you bite the dust. Her friend looked at the wall, remembering that situation. Rumito, you remember what they used to say about kind people and what demons they really are? The blonde raised a somewhat confused eyebrow. Ryuko, I think you hit yourself too hard. Put a hand on her forehead to confirm if there was a wound. Rumi, I am serious. The moment I hit the ground I could see his eyes, and I've been in too many fights to know that eyes this calm in such tense moments are the most dangerous. His friend was surprised by what he said. Believe me, that guy in a fight, it's the worst thing you can face, and I'm very grateful that Ryuta stopped it, because if it wasn't so right now he would be in a hospital. The blonde looked at him with quite a surprise. It wasn't possible for someone this kind to hide something so dark, right? He had never considered Rumi as a liar. If it is true that he had caught her lying more than once, but it was not that she was lying much, so he could carefully consider what she said. His explanation may have been a bit exaggerated, but yes, he raised something that Ryuko didn't think about until now. The boy's life was quite interesting to him, or rather he was curious about him. She was always curious about other people. That was what led her to be in a relationship with Kigo in the first place. When she was studying, Kigo was one of her classmates, someone quite intelligent who never seemed to be there. He disappeared for whole days, and when he returned he acted as if nothing was happening and even arrived with all the homework done and topics up to date. That aroused his curiosity, and between chats and follow-ups he ended up with something more than his satiated curiosity. Of course, after his heart was broken in such a way, it's not that he wanted to learn more from people no matter how intriguing they are. He learned to retain his curiosity and much more to always keep at bay with the people close to him. On the other hand, he was her daughter's babysitter, literally the person she gave the confidence to protect and take care of her when she was not there. Knowing him would be beneficial to know who Ryuta is really staying with. It was not so far-fetched. Wanting to know a little more about him. Ryuko, it's a very bad idea, she murmured to herself, looking very intensely at the contact on her phone. It was 3 in the morning and this curiosity didn't let her sleep, but it's her fault for me not being able to sleep. He murmured, trying to convince himself that it was a very good idea. He continued looking at the contact without deciding, plus he's probably asleep at this time. He looked at his watch again. It was almost 4 in the morning, his time to wake up. Damn. Without further ado he got up and prepared to start her day a little more bitter than normal. Of course, having that mental dispute affected her when it came to doing things. She was barely focused on what she was doing and her daughter was noticing it. Her mother went too far when she cleaned the table and made quite a mess that she quickly fixed, and the worst it was that she almost burned breakfast, which worried the girl. Ryuta, mommy, are you okay? He murmured with fear, which surprised his mother. Ryuko, do you say that, honey? He carried his girl, who looked quite indecisive. Ryuta, you're stupid. His mother was somewhat paralyzed, thinking about what to answer. You almost broke the picture that Aunt Rumi gave us, and the rice almost burned. His mother smiled sweetly at him. Ryuko, I'm just a little distracted, honey. It's nothing more. Smiled tensely at her girl, who didn't look very convinced. Ryuta, I don't think so. Pouted at her mother, who looked more tense. Ryuko, very good. Maybe she's a little gone, but it's because I haven't slept much. I'm a little tired. She caressed the cheek of her girl, who looked worried. Calm down, honey. It's nothing you should worry about. She put her daughter down and continued preparing breakfast. Of course her daughter was very worried. Even though she disguised him, it was clear that he was not well, so in the girl's mind, her mother needed help, and what she could get without her mother getting angry was very limited. She had to think well who to call. She immediately thought of her Aunt Rumi, but more than once Mom had named her as a hopeless fool that only she could understand, so she didn't seem to be the necessary help in this situation, so she only had one option left, the person who was almost as smart as his mom. So while her mother finished preparing breakfast, she ran to her room, picked up her mother's phone and quickly looked for the important contact before calling. Mom always told her how to do it in case of an emergency, and for Ryuta this was a very emergency. Big. Ryuko, Ryuta to eat. He called his girl, who came to the table with a big smile. What did you make small? His girl just sat nervously. Ryuta. Ryuta, I didn't do anything. Pouted, looking away, which made his mother doubt much more. Ryuka, honey, I'm not going to scold you. His girl took a spoon and started eating without wanting to talk to him. Ryuta, I was going to continue when the doorbell rang. Who will it be at this time? He walked towards the door, letting his daughter breathe easy. Ryuta, I'll ask my mom. She murmured into the air, quite proud to call for help. Ryuko who? Midoriya-san? Surprised, she looked at the freckled man who smiled quite tensely. What is he doing here so early? I don't remember hiring him today. Looking at him from the front, his doubts and curiosity returned. Izuku Ryuta-kun called and said that her mother was very sick and needed my help. He spoke calmly, surprising the woman. Ryuko Ryuta, he spoke coldly, making the girl tremble in her seat. Izuki's Ryuko-san okay? The woman smiled quite tensely. Ryuko Ryuta just exaggerated things. I didn't sleep well, that's all. The freckled man let out a sigh. Izuku, thank goodness, I thought he was in bed or something wrong. The woman smiled with some affection. Ryuko, as you can see I'm at full capacity, smiled, trying to calm the freckled man. Ryuta-mon lies with all her teeth. The girl appeared quite red with fury. Ryuko Ryuta? His daughter was actually quite upset, which in a way seemed cute to him since she pouted and was quite red like a beet. Izuku, what's up Ryuta-kun? The freckled man crouched down at the height of the girl who was holding her dress tightly. Ryuta, mom is playing dumb for not worrying me, she continued with her pout. She needs sleep and needs help. Her mother was quite surprised. Please help her. He bowed to the green-haired man who smiled. Izuku, I see. He caressed the hair of the girl who looked at him. It seems to me that you have done something very good by calling when you think there is danger. The girl continued with a pout, although she also felt proud of receiving praise, because no better are you going to finish your breakfast than I help your mom, do you think? The girl nodded, walking towards the table waiting for her mother to receive help. Ryuko, I am very sorry for this situation. Midoriya-san, my head is somewhere else and I worried Ryuta a lot about that. She looked towards her daughter who was eating quite calmly. Izuku, don't worry, nothing's wrong. I'm glad nothing problematic happened. The woman smiled at the freckled man who took one last look at the girl. Although if she wants I can take care of everything while she takes a nap. She looks a little exhausted. The woman, he blushed a little with shame. Ryuko, no need Midoriya-san, although thanks for offering. He smiled, trying to calm down. Izuku, sure, if you need anything you can always call me. It's a pleasure to help. He smiled with no more willingness to leave. Ryuko, in fact his curiosity got the better of him. He was about to do something crazy. I would like one day to go somewhere to chat. There are certain things I would like to tell you. Izuku, sure. He smiled tensely as he didn't see something like that coming. Ryuko, great. Just the freckled man left and she closed the door, sighing and falling to the floor. But what did I just do? Red as hell, she questioned. Rumi sincerely expected everything except what her friend did. She wanted to kick her for what she did, but somehow she wasn't doing it. She just watched her friend go back and forth in her office while judging every moment she had done in front of Ryuta's babysitter just a week ago. It would be fun to see if it weren't a situation quite similar to what Ryuko experienced when she fell under Kiko's charms, although of course at that time the damn blonde was trying to make his friend fall in love with him and this boy didn't seem to want to do that. Rumi, are you going to keep going around or do I have to put you in your place? He asked with some irritation. Ryuko, I would like to tell you to leave, but right now I need your help. I don't know why I did that. I was about to go crazy about the situation. Rumi, you said the same thing when you went out with Mr. Cute Eyes. She made fun of her friend who looked at him with some anger. Hey Rumi, talk to Kiko and what do you think? I asked him on a date. Well, not a date, but something similar. He quoted his own friend who looked at him with annoyance. Ryuko, do you think I'll make the same mistake? The white-haired girl seemed to think so, although she knew the answer well. Rumi, what? That's what you're showing, you're making the same mistakes with a different fool, the blonde sighed. Ryuko, Rumi, do you really think I would mess with my daughter's babysitter? The white-haired girl looked at the ceiling thinking of a convincing answer. Do you really think I would? Rumi, maybe. Her friend glared at her. You can't blame me for thinking like that, you haven't had a date in a long time and not just for taking care of Ryuta. You yourself decided to walk away for fear of what they might do to the girl. You may be desperate. Ryukoyori, pretty insufferable, you know that. Her friend smiled proudly. Well, this is what I'll do. I'll talk to Midoriya-san about what I need to talk about while you take care of Ryuta, okay? The white-haired girl nodded, looking at her phone. Rumi, sure. Just make sure to bring ice cream for when you realize you want something with the living broccoli. He responded gracefully, making the blonde angry. Ryuko, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. She let out a sigh to make her friend laugh. The happy day came earlier than the beyond expected, perhaps because she was nervous about what could happen or perhaps because of her friend's words, and She was really interested in the boy that way. She knew better than anyone that a long time ago she had put aside her entire love life for her daughter and had missed a lot because of it, but she didn't regret it. Plus surely the green-haired man didn't consider this as a date either. It wasn't specific enough so that I could consider it a simple meeting with a direct employee. Nothing more. Rumi, I thought you would get more beautiful for your date. Made fun of her friend who had just put on her earrings. Ryuko, stop confusing things. I'm just going to chat with him. Her friend looked at her in disbelief. Why do you think I'm so informal? She said proudly. Rumi, I don't know if those pants are very casual, you know. Her friend raised an eyebrow, confused. You know, it looks like you're going to, you know. She smiled mockingly at her friend who sighed. Ryuko, my pants are perfect and I'm not going to take advantage of a situation to take him to bed. I just want to talk to him. She crossed her arms angrily. And by the way, it's better that I leave. She just left the room, finding her girl who looked at him curiously. Ryuta, mommy, where are you going? His mother smiled at him and crouched down to his height. Ryuko, I am just going to go talk to Midoriya-san. I'll be back soon. Okay. The girl nodded slowly. While you will stay with your silly Aunt Rumi. She stroked her girl's hair, who smiled happily. Rumi, here you are the fool, she shouted from her friend's room. Ryuko, if something happens, call yes? The girl nodded again. I'm leaving. She walked towards the door to go to her Not 8. The plan was to go have a drink and chat to calm her doubts that Rumi had placed about her, nothing more. It was not a date as such, or at least she did not remember that dates were like that. It is not that she had many at the time, but they could say they were more elaborate than something like that. It wasn't a date. Despite convincing herself of this, she still felt nervous being there in a cafeteria that she liked, waiting for the green-haired man to arrive. She looked out the window quite anxiously and with a small tick when she touched the table with her finger tensely, because of her nerves. He had arrived a little earlier than he had said. Izuku, worry doesn't suit you very well. Ryuko-san, the freckled man seemed with his calm smile that seemed to dispel his nerves. Ryuko, it's not just that. Well, she let out a sigh, trying to calm herself as the freckled man sat in front of her. Rumi gave me ideas. It's not something to worry about. Izuku, from the little he showed, I think I should be worried. Joked a little, making the blonde laugh. Ryuko, don't believe me. No, it's just our nonsense. She smiled a little calmer. Izuku, I understand. He smiled, settling better into the chair. Tell me what you wanted to talk to me about. The woman became a little tense, which was quite noticeable. Ryuko, it's related to what happened with Rumi. One didn't really know how to start this conversation. Izuku, did I do something that hurt her? Or something that could affect Ryuta-kun? He didn't want to cause problems. He always tried to run away from them, but somehow they caught up with him. Ryuko, no, nothing like that. Rumi is much tougher than she seems, and Ryuta only speaks wonders about you. No, it's something that Rumi noticed that I would like more than to confirm. Talking about the green-haired man tilted his head, somewhat confused. Izuku, what did your friend notice? I didn't quite understand everything. Ryuko's, he didn't know how the green-haired man could take it, but he could put a before and after to how they got along. Midoriya-san has ever fought, a question that he considered quite soft to start with. Izuku, I guess Rumi-san has struggled a lot, didn't he? He commented gracefully. The truth is that I had my altercations when I was in high school, and high school people tend to be very idiotic in those years, and they messed with me a lot. Luckily, I didn't have many problems with the teachers. It wasn't something that made him happy, but he was able to get out of those situations well without involving his parents. They already had too much on their shoulders for him to put more. Ryuko, I understand. That could explain the look Rumi saw. The truth is that what he said made me think about quite a few things. Izuku, what things? He spoke tensely. He could see where things were going. Ryuko, don't worry, it's not to stop hiring your babysitting service anymore. It's rather that he told me that I don't really know him well enough. Despite trusting him with my most precious treasure, I don't know him very well, and I would like to know more about you. Izuku, that was it. She let out a sigh, calming down. If I'm honest, Ryuko-san also causes me a lot of doubts, especially because of what happened with her ex and the reason why she is alone with Ryuta. The woman seemed quite tense. I understand that it is a very serious and quite personal matter, but when she talked about it I noticed her very badly. The woman looked at the table, quite focused on the freckled man's words. So if she is willing to talk to me, I am willing to give her exactly what she is looking for. She smiled, trying to calm the woman. Ryuko, truth is that it is something quite complicated, or well, that's how I see it. She thought about it for a long time. Although it is true that I haven't gotten advice about what happened in a long time, and Midoriya-san shows a lot of confidence. Maybe she was quite desperate. As Rumi said, I would like to hear Your story and share my story. She smiled calmly at the freckled man who nodded. Lying on his bed, Izuku stared at the ceiling, recalling what the blonde had said in their long conversation. As always when he heard stories like that, he felt a pit in his stomach. He never liked infidelity, much less taking advantage of others, and hearing that it happened to such a good person only made his anger increase. It was pure willpower that kept him in bed and prevented him from searching for the guy who hurt the blonde to make him suffer. Izuku, in the end, Mina is right, I am a busybody, he commented, closing his eyes. He had a rather pronounced hero complex inside him, but it's hard for me not to help someone, he murmured, turning over and looking towards the window. What to do? From his pocket, he took out his phone and began to look through his contacts, quickly landing on the one of the blonde with whom he had spent the day. What to do? Flashback. Ryuko. When I entered high school, I met Kigo. He wasn't the most punctual student, but he was one of the smartest in the school. He always had a mysterious air about him, as well as a handsome face. There were many girls after him, she commented with a laugh while drinking her coffee. Izuku, is that what attracted you? The woman nodded, looking at the cup. Ryuko. Kigo knew very well what he caused and used it to his advantage. There were some pretty wild rumors about what he did both with the girls and outside of school. He was the stereotypical bad boy from some movie. She sighed, remembering those times. Izuku, you believed those stories? The woman shook her head, taking another sip of her drink. Ryuko, I've always been quite skeptical of all the rumors. I didn't believe anything until I saw it, and with him, it was no exception. The craziest thing I saw him do was convince a guy to give him a motorcycle in perfect condition. The blonde always had a silver tongue and knew how to use it. Izuku, how did you end up with someone like that? She asked, out of pure curiosity. Ryuko, it started with random questions that came up in class about what I was doing. As they say, curiosity killed the cat, and in my case, it led me to be with him. She spoke bitterly. I followed him a couple of times until he caught me, and we started chatting. Izuku, you fell for his charms too, didn't you? The blonde nodded, somewhat embarrassed. Ryuko, at first, I was very reluctant to accept what he was saying. He had a reputation as a womanizer and a girl catcher. Obviously, he was an expert, and I knew it, so I did my best to avoid any romantic feelings arising, but she sighed. Izuku, she couldn't maintain her composure and ended up caught in his web. The blonde nodded again. Ryuko, his silver tongue worked on me. I was weak to his flattery and thoughtful gestures without realizing what he really wanted from me. She gripped the cup somewhat tightly. Izuku, something about you? Besides your body? He spoke with some nervousness and anger, quite well disguised. Ryuka, I suppose you know, when you're in love you do crazy things for that love, even if it's the worst thing in the world, you do it for that happiness, and a lot of that had happened, but it still hurt. I gave him free access to my money and he did whatever he wanted. I remembered well how he asked her for the money and how blind I was to reality. Izuku, didn't your parents say anything? The woman lowered her gaze. Ryuko, they always scolded me for doing those crazy things, she said, smiling with quite a bit of melancholy. I was a complete idiot and let him take so much. He probably used that money for parties and women. He was unfaithful to me while I thought I was helping his father, being the purest and most honest person in the world. Izuku, how disgusting, he muttered while drinking his coffee. Ryuko, you have no idea. She deeply regretted her decisions from those days. The worst part was that we continued together for many years, me blinded by love and him happy to have a walking ATM. Izuku, I'm sorry. He placed his hand on hers, trying to comfort her. Ryuko, it's the past, and although I wish I could change some things, I can't. She smiled, a little calmer. Anyway, I continued with that charade until we got to university, and everything changed. Izuku, she finally realized the truth? He commented with some amusement, earning a negative response from the woman. Ryuko, not entirely. When we got to university, he couldn't keep up the same pace anymore. It was much more effort he had to put in to continue, so halfway through his degree, he decided he didn't want it anymore and ended up moving in with me. She sighed, tense from those days. Izuku, was it worse? The woman nodded, leaning back in her chair. Ryuko, it was worse than having a baby. There was so much mess and so many substances that shouldn't have been there. Even so, there I was, cleaning up after him while he talked to other women on the phone. Izuku, didn't you ever think about leaving? The blonde shook her head sadly. Ryuko, I thought I could change him, that if I tried hard to make things work, everything would be better, that we'd have a better life. How naive I was. I remembered when he had his daughter and he got quite scared. Izuku, how did you get out of that situation? He clenched his fists with a lot of pent-up anger. Ryuko, mom and dad took me out of that apartment and far away from him. I remember being so desperate to get out of that situation that I didn't argue with them at all. She smiled, remembering her mother's cooking and the games she played with her father. Izuku, did you get out of that situation after having Ryuta? The woman nodded happily. Ryuko, when they came for me, only a few days had passed since my first and only time with Kigo. I suppose he enjoyed any girl other than me more for intimacy. That did hurt him a little at the time, but now it didn't matter much. That's what brought me back to reality. Was Izuku aggressive? She asked seriously, not liking where things were going. Ryuko, more than that, he assumed I already had experience and did it savagely. I barely remember anything good from that night beyond crying and begging him not to come inside me. I was scared, and he wasn't in his right mind, although I suppose even in his right mind it wouldn't have been enjoyable. She mocked a little, trying to relax. Izuku, Rukosen, the freckled boy, took her hand, trying to calm the woman. It's okay, he's here with me. He smiled as if nothing was wrong, letting the woman get lost in his gaze. Ryuko, after that, I had Ryuta and went to court to get full custody. They denied it originally, but Kigo managed to win over the jury, so we had joint custody. Izuku, I guess he did something wrong. The woman nodded, lightly squeezing the freckled boy's hand. Ryuko, no more than 3 months passed before I got a call from the hospital. They had found Ryuta in bad shape at Kigo's apartment while he was at a motel with a woman. Tests showed he was intoxicated with many things, so he went to prison. That part was good despite feeling infinite anguish for her little girl. Izuku, and you had full custody of Ryuta-kun. The woman nodded with a smile. Ryuko, he went to prison for a while, but I saw him. He's out now, and I doubt he'll just sit idly by. She looked at the table again, somewhat afraid. I don't want him to take Ryuta. I'm afraid of what he might do to him. End of flashback. Izuku, whatever happens, I'm going to help Rukosen, he promised. Looking at his phone, I guess I do have a bit of a hero complex, he muttered, feeling her shoulders still felt tense even after such a long bath. She was surprised not only by the calmness with which the green-haired boy had listened to her story without questioning it much, but also by the freckled boy's experiences, especially since she thought they were a list of things worse than falling in love with Kigo. Putting that aside, she got out of the tub and began drying her hair and face with a towel, letting her worries go down the drain as she thought more about the freckled boy and the crazy story he had told. Ryuko, now I understand why Rumi is so afraid of him. Without another word, she got up, grabbed another towel to wrap herself in, and left her personal bath, going straight to her bed. If he had any idea of a fight, I'd be afraid of him too, she commented, letting out a soft sigh before putting on her pajamas. Despite that, he's someone extremely admirable and kind. She smiled peacefully as she lay down on her bed, quite tired from the day. Flashback. Izuku, I don't consider my story as amazing as other people's, but I did have my ups and downs, he smiled, playing with the now empty coffee cup in front of him. Mom and Dad always worked hard for me, to a point I can't even imagine. We weren't the richest people, but we lived well. They were even able to enroll me in a pretty prestigious academy to give me a good future. Ryuko, a private academy? Wow, that's pretty impressive. The green-haired boy nodded proudly. Izuku, unfortunately, the kids back then didn't think the same way. Since it was a well-regarded academy, kids from better backgrounds than ours went there, and they boasted about it every day, to the point of doing all sorts of silly things to make me look ridiculous. He let out a rather tense sigh at those memories. I always tried not to let it affect me, but it was impossible. Ryuko, did they physically hurt you? The freckled boy thought about it carefully. If it's such a delicate subject, I don't think it's right to continue talking about it. He didn't want to make the green-haired boy uncomfortable. Izuku, no, it's not that. Whenever I remember what happened, I'm surprised by what I did, that's all. He smiled calmly, surprising the woman. I always treated them pretty well. I never wanted to raise a hand to them or start fights. I didn't want to get kicked out of that school for causing a ruckus. Ryuko until the freckled boy let out a laugh. It was clear there was a but. Izuku one day, the spotlight fell on a girl who, like me, was there because of her parents' hard work. It became the focus very quickly, and things went too far very soon. Remembering that always brought him a mix of quite strong emotions. Ryuko by too far, do you mean? She spoke tensely, unwilling to believe that children would go that far. Izuku not that far. They wanted to hit her with rocks and stuff, so I got between them and the girl. I started a fight to defend her, and one of them ended up in the nurse's office. It was quite a hard hit. Ryuko, they expelled him? The freckled boy shook his head. Izuku, nothing happened to me, the kids did get punished, and after that they tried to fight me again, so we inevitably ended up in front of the principal again. Ryuko, luck wasn't exactly on your side, was it? The freckled boy chuckled. Izuku nodded. At the time he recalled with some bitterness. Over the years it became normal to find myself fighting with one or more kids, and even upperclassmen, just over any little thing. Ryuko, did they never call your parents? The freckled boy nodded somewhat sheepishly. Izuku, fortunately for me, my grades served as a defense against expulsion. My parents were still called, and of course I got punished. For some things. Ryuko, I guess nobody gets away with anything for long, huh? She joked with the green-haired boy, who chuckled. Izuku, I guess that's true. Fortunately, I came out of there not only as one of the best but also learning to defend myself in case of emergency. That explained Rumi, although it's been a long time since I fought anyone. For some time now, whenever I face someone who really wants to hit someone, they stop when they see me. Ryuko, it might be his presence. The freckled boy tilted his head, somewhat confused. I think, judging by Rumi's reaction, that his presence is quite intimidating in combat, so much so that people think twice before actually getting involved. Izuku, I guess she might be right, although it sounded very silly from his point of view. Ryuko, do you remember the last time you hit someone? The freckled boy nodded quite confidently. Izuku, back in college, when I was starting out, there was this guy bothering my friend Melissa. That idiot might have been under the influence of alcohol or some drug because of his incoherent speech, but he was definitely looking for trouble. Ryuko, how did that fight end? It's clear you won, but what happened to the guy? The more they talked, the more curious the blonde became. Izuku, I remember that pretty well, though I'm not proud of it. He ended up in the hospital with quite a few injuries. To the head. That time I managed to knock him down before hitting his head so many times that his knuckles were covered in blood. Ryuko, think carefully about what Midoriya-san said. She commented, somewhat incredulous at this innocent side of the green-haired boy. Izuku, I don't see how. He paused for a moment, reliving the events, especially how he kept hitting despite his rival's obvious unconsciousness. Oh, the woman shook her head, somewhat amused. Wow. Ryuko, I guess he got used to it being aggressive in fights with you, and you had no choice but to return the favor. The freckled boy looked at the table, remembering every beating he'd received in his life. It's not so bad if you ask me. The green-haired boy looked at him quite curiously. Izuku, I doubt I can feel good about beating people until they're unrecognizable. Didn't like that part of himself. Rukoya never raised a hand against anyone. Innocent, right? The freckled boy shook his head, looking down. Then I don't think it was wrong to defend yourself like that. Many might consider you a monster or something horrible, but I know, Midoriya-san, that what you did was right. She took the freckled boy's hand and smiled at him. Izuku, thank you for your vote of confidence. Ruka-san smiled happily at the woman, who smiled back, blushing slightly. End of flashback. Ryuko, we all have our own demons, a phrase her mother often repeated when Ryuko was little and didn't understand certain people. I'm sure I can help you lessen yours. Smiling, she looked out the window in complete calm. Don't worry, Midoriya-san, from now on you have someone to help you. She spoke to the sky, quite tired. The day had been quite pleasant, although rather demanding on her mind. She could only hope that tomorrow would be better. As was becoming the norm, the freckled boy was at Tatsuma's apartment looking after the dragon girl, who was always brimming with curiosity, although today was quite different. She was being rather cold and glaring angrily at the freckled boy, refusing to talk about anything. She even stayed in her room playing with her toys instead of in the living room learning about dragons and other mythical creatures with the green-haired boy, which was quite disconcerting. Izuku, is something wrong, Ryuta-kun? The girl was eating grapes with a rather angry pout. You seem very upset, Ryuta. I don't like you, Izuku. He turned his gaze. Eating another grape and surprising the green-haired boy. Izuku, did I do something to upset you? He spoke calmly, trying not to show his fear. Ryuta, you want to steal my mom? He accused the freckled boy, who froze. Izuku, huh? The girl pouted, turning quite red with anger. Can you explain why you think that? He smiled tensely at the girl. Ryuta, they went to eat alone. He accused the freckled boy, who smiled more calmly. I won't let anyone take mommy, he said with a seriousness rarely seen in her. Izuku, I'm sorry you came to that conclusion, Ryuta-kun. He stroked the girl's hair, who was still pouting. How about next time the three of us go out together? What do you think? The girl's eyes lit up. Ryuta, yes. She hugged the green-haired boy, who returned the hug. Izuku, good, it's a promise, okay? The girl nodded in the hug. Ryuta, but don't take my mommy, he spoke again with seriousness, melting the freckled boy's heart. Izuku, that's impossible, Ryuta-kun, no one but you. Mom can give you so much love, and if something were to happen, I'm pretty sure she'd become the most powerful dragon to come for you. The girl looked at him impressed. Ryuta, can mom turn into a dragon? Like in the story you told me? The green-haired boy let out a laugh. Izuku, your mother will become whatever is necessary to protect you. Ryuta-kun is determined to do anything for her little girl. The girl smiled happily at having the most fantastic mother on the planet. This mother was somewhat stressed at her job, or to be more precise, stressed by the meal she was having. In order to improve relations with one of the investors, she agreed to go to lunch with him, believing they would talk about some concern she had or something that wasn't so optimal from her perspective, but instead, she was on a kind of date with the investor, who was smiling as if he had won the lottery with his stupid plan. Enjoy our meal, Ryukyu, smiling, and he spoke arrogantly, expecting a lot from this outing, especially getting closer to one of the richest and most influential women of the moment. Ryuko, to be honest, I was hoping for a slightly more productive conversation, she commented quite seriously and coldly. Productive, in what way? Of course, he was so blinded by his own arrogance that he understood something completely different from what the blonde meant. Ryuko, I thought I had some ideas to improve our projects, but since this was useless, it's just been a waste of time. She stood up. Ready to leave the restaurant, she was wasting a lot of time. No, wait, Ryukyu. He hurried to follow the blonde. He really thought things were going well with the woman. Ryuko, what a stupid thing to say, she muttered, walking angrily. Story continues below. Wait, Ryukyu. He managed to grab her hand, increasing the blonde's anger. Ryukyu has talked a lot, don't you think? I have things to do, she said as calmly as she could at that moment, despite wanting to hit the guy. I really think you should reconsider the idea of us going out more unless you want something bad to happen to your company. He smiled, believing he had the blonde in a bad position. Ryuko, he's going to use the fact that he's an investor just to make me his? I'm sorry, but I don't care if he's my investor, the most famous actor in the world, or even the most perfect being in creation. I'm not interested in the guy. He was surprised, which the blonde took advantage of to get out of his grip. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get another investor. Without another word, she started walking, taking this chaos as if nothing was wrong. Do you really think you can reject me? She shouted angrily. No woman had ever rejected him before. You know I can sink your company, right? Ryukahaga, do whatever you want. I'm sure you're the one who will end up looking bad. She looked over her shoulder with considerable superiority. Don't think I'm unaware of the rumors surrounding you. And if you wish to maintain your fortune, I recommend calming down. The man looked at her in astonishment before becoming enraged. You know nothing about meth. Woman smiled slightly, turning away. Ryuko, I know you're in trouble because of certain dealings with certain girls that weren't exactly legal. She left the idea to the subject's imagination. That's a false accusation, and I've already proven it. Defended himself arrogantly. Ryuko, yes, but there are already eyes on you, and I'm completely clean, which means that if something were to happen, justice would doubt you and be more on my side, right? The man broke out in a cold sweat at what the Nubian woman mentioned. What would happen then? How many companies would turn their backs on you simply because of such a scandal? She acted quite innocently, as if it were natural to do this. Ski clenched his fists angrily, he was cornered. What do you want? He spoke, accepting what the woman was saying. Ryuko, this is what will happen. You will cease to be an investor in my company immediately. I will not speak of absolutely anything that has been said today, and we will both go our separate ways. The guy nodded. It was simple enough. But if you happen to cross, understood, he muttered with barely contained anger. Ryuko, good. I'm glad to clear things up. With a sly smile, she withdrew, leaving the irritated guy in the middle of the street. With me somehow. I'll make sure people know what kind of person they're messing with. Her day had been ruined, and that was easily seen by anyone who crossed her path. Her icy gaze could paralyze anyone standing in front of her. It was a much longer day than she expected, but it was finally over, and she was standing in front of her house, tired and quite irritated by everything. The worst part was that she still had to make dinner and get Ryuta to sleep before preparing everything for tomorrow. She didn't even want to think about tomorrow since she wanted to teach Ryuta, and that would take quite a while. She sighed and opened the front door. Instantly, a rather pleasant smell reached her nose, almost relaxing her. Surprised, she walked after leaving her things in the living room towards the kitchen, admiring her little girl eating a plate of katsudon in the dining room while the nanny hummed something in the kitchen. Ryuko, what's going on? She spoke, dazed, drawing the attention of both of them. Ryuta, mommy. The little girl got down from the chair and hugged her mother's legs. Ryuko, hi. Ryuta smiled, stroking her little girl's hair. Izuku, welcome home, Rikosen. He smiled with a ladle in his hand. I'm glad you arrived safely. Ryuko, what are Midniasen doing? The freckled boy smiled, putting the ladle aside, picking up a pot, and walking with it to the table. Izuku, I figured you'd arrive exhausted after a day of work, so with Ryutaken's help, we decided to make a perfect dinner for you. Delicately placed the pot on the table, smiling at the woman. I would have liked to prepare something much more sophisticated, but the only thing I know how to make is katsudon. I'm sorry about that. Ryuko, don't worry, I appreciate the gesture. She smiled, stunned by this show of gratitude. Ryuta, I helped make it. Ryuko spoke proudly of herself. Ryuko, really? Then we'd better eat. She took her child and sat with her, smelling the food. It smells exquisite. Ryuta, try it, Mom. The woman took some on a plate, looking fondly at what she had prepared. Ryuko, enjoy. She took a single bite, feeling her problems vanish. It's delicious. She spoke with her mouth full. Izuku, would you like something to drink? The woman nodded happily. Ryuko, there's wine in the cupboard. I'd like a glass. The green-haired boy nodded, going to the kitchen. Come eat with me, Ryuta. The girl nodded, sitting down again and eating what she had left on her plate. Izuku, here you go. He placed the glass in front of the woman, who smiled, taking a sip. And this is for Ryutaken. He placed a glass next to his mother's. Ryuta, thank you. Without another word, he continued eating, making the freckled boy smile. Ryuko, but don't just stand there, Midoriya-san, eat too. The freckled boy felt a little embarrassed. Izuku, I don't think it's right. It's a family dinner between the two of you. I'm fine, he smiled, pleased to help. Ryuko, what are you talking about? Come on, eat too, you'll make me feel bad if you don't. The freckled boy sighed, shaking his head before sitting down across from the mother and daughter. Izuku, enjoy your meal. Without another word, he served himself on his plate. They began to eat alongside the mother and daughter, looking like a very happy family. Looking at the situation Kigo was in, he began to devise his little plan to obtain a good life, and in case the first one didn't work out, he had a second plan pretty much perfected, although that would surely take him much longer, and right now he didn't have the patience for that. He still had a fresh memory of the police entering the motel room while he was quite high with the escort. They arrested him on the spot for negligence and he ended up in jail. He should have hated the gossipy neighbors who reported Ryuta crying, but that wasn't his way. He let it go and served his sentence as required, and boy, was it hell, but he made it, and until recently, when he managed to get out, he needed a lot of money to get back into the game. He knew his ex was incredibly successful and knew he could get a lot out of it, but he didn't want to take care of the girl. It would hold him back too much, it was a burden that would take a lot of time, and it wasn't what he wanted. But if it was what he needed to get what he wanted, he would gladly play the father in the eyes of society while he figured out what to do with the brat. And if that didn't work, he could always win Ryuko back, even if it took a long time. He was very confident in his knowledge of women and knew exactly which points to strike to make them his. It might not work so well with Ryuko, since she knew his tricks and would surely be cold to whatever he tried, as she had already shown. So, if he was going down that road, it would take a long time, and he couldn't allow that. Therefore, he had to do the first thing. For that, he needed the right tools and started by obtaining partial custody of Ryuta. This was convenient for two reasons. Not only could he get easy money from his ex, but he could also use that custody to show Ryuko that he was a changed man and that continuing their relationship was a good idea. To do this, he had to convince a lot of people and do very boring things that he didn't like at all, so he contacted an old acquaintance who he knew had good connections he could use. But what do my eyes see? Old Kiko back in action? In the middle of a seedy bar, the blonde looked at an old acquaintance from Crazy Adventures, Kiko. Hey Dobby, it's been ages, he smiled at his dark-haired friend who sat down next to him. Tuya, it's been an eternity since you called. What does the great hawk need now? He mocked his friend, who smiled as calmly as ever. I heard you just got out of prison? I almost didn't believe it when I first heard. Thinking about you being in a cell is quite funny. Kiko continued his mockery a little longer. Just a small mistake, he commented as if what had happened was nothing. Now I need to get a lot of money, and I know how to do it, but I need some help with that. The dark-haired man raised an eyebrow, curious about what the blonde was saying. Tuya, I already thought it was strange that the first word that didn't come out of your mouth was give me money. He sighed, looking around cautiously. Now what do you need? Kiko, are you still in contact with your father? His friend seemed serious for a few seconds. Tuya, I know you usually do impossible things, but this is very out of character. He spoke with some anger. You know perfectly well that I won't speak to that idiot ever again. Kiko, and I know he'd do anything to reconcile with you, like helping one of your friends with their problems. The dark-haired man didn't seem comfortable with that idea. Tuya, I don't think you can convince me with that. The blonde smiled slightly. He had the perfect idea. Kiko, when I get the money, I can pay you with a great night with so many girls you'll be burning up down there. Plus, I'll buy all your merchandise for the next 10 months. The dark-haired man hesitated, and the blonde knew it. What do you say? Tuya Yurei with a very convincing mouth. He smiled slightly. Deal. They shook hands, sealing their fate. Tuya's father, or as he always called himself, Dobby, was a rather serious and cold man who had made many mistakes throughout his life. He had done a lot of harm in pursuit of his ideology of justice, which seemed to blind him when he was younger. A judge who wanted to purge all possible evil, who seemed dissatisfied with nothing, and who, to top it all off, had a near-perfect record of cases, sadly, being so focused on his goal, had neglected much, especially his family and his children, which led one of them to go astray. It was one of his failings as a judge as well, given that it was his son. The first time he had him in front of him in the court, he allowed him to go despite having charges. Quite problematic. He hoped to be able to guide him down the right path, but he failed. He only pushed his first son deeper. This fractured his family more than he thought. His second son began to hate and blame him, not only for never being there, but also for how Tuya ended up. His wife, while trying not to say much about it, clearly felt quite terrible for her son. She never blamed her husband, given that she also felt guilty for not stopping him enough. His daughter also greatly doubted her father's abilities, although she wasn't one to blame him directly. She simply distanced herself from him, no longer recognizing him after years apart. When his fourth child arrived, he tried to improve things somewhat. Even when his eldest son was released from prison, he tried to reconcile them, but with his hatred still fresh, his son wanted nothing to do with them. Even so, Todoroki Enji didn't give up and always tried to regain the trust of his son, which he had long since lost, mainly due to his son's own actions. He did everything necessary to win it back, and as the years passed, he began to lose hope. Tuya knew it well, his father would do anything to bring him back to the family, perhaps out of a desire for redemption, or who knew? He didn't care at all what the old man had to say. He was just an idiot who abandoned him when he was in danger and left him at the mercy of the police with too many drugs to sell. Although he had received many visits from him while serving his sentence, the truth was he wanted nothing from him, until now. Just one call from his father was all it took. He had to be as convincing as possible. It was true that Enji would do anything for his son, but he highly doubted he would agree to use his influence to take someone's daughter away. There was still a veil of principles that wouldn't allow it, which should make the old man doubt that this woman was being deficient with the girl, and he didn't think it would be easy. Tuya, here we go, he sighed, dialing the risky number, waiting tensely for an answer. Yes? His father's voice paralyzed him for a second. Tuya, hello Todoroki, he spoke with his characteristic confidence, hoping to convince his father. Mina, I feel like something bad is going to happen, she commented, lying in her chair. Izuku who? Because? He got a little nervous because of his friend's serious look. Mina, because they haven't called to ask for the green bush that became the best babysitter in the area. The green-haired man blinked in disbelief. Izuku, I think you're exaggerating, Mina, the pink-haired girl denied, quite sure of her words. Mina, no, it's true. You are one of the biggest reasons why we receive many children to take care of. It is true that we now have a larger staff, but you have not stopped being quite influential. The fact that we do not receive requests for you can mean something very, very bad. He exaggerated a little, leaving his friend tense. Izuku, why don't you calm down and think with a cold head? She took her friend by the hand and made her sit down. You have worked harder than anyone for this, you have put effort into making everything like this, and I only pushed. That's not so bad. Too sooner or later I will have to continue on my way and you will have to continue on your own. Her friend let out a somewhat sad sigh at that outcome. Mina, I can't convince you no matter how much your salary increases, right? He asked gracefully. Izuku, no, it's not only about the money, I also have goals and projects that I want to do. She stroked her friend's hair trying to comfort her, but I can say that I will be a call away. Mina, thank you for always being there. Hero, the freckled man surrounded his eyes. Izuku, if what you say. He gave her more caresses on the head before his phone rang. Ruko-san. Mina, oh, she smiled mockingly at her distracted friend. You know there is a policy for dating clients, right? We don't want to get into other people's relationships. He continued his mockery, hoping to upset the freckled man, but he looked quite worried. Is something wrong, Midorican? Izuku, it's Ryukin. She's sick. She didn't even think about leaving. Then we talked. She just left the room, leaving the pink-haired girl quite worried. Mina, I hope the girl is not so bad. It was never pleasant to see sick little ones, much less so late. On the way to Ryuko's house, his brain began to make a lot of speculation about what could be happening there, almost reaching the point of exaggeration. He knew that Ryuta had no allergies, so something he ate, inhaled, or touched could not affect him. It could have been the most common thing in the world, like a common flu. How can it be the worst thing that can happen to the girl and the mother? The possibilities were too many and he was too excited to think clearly, so he simply went as quickly as possible to help the girl and the mother, who was probably scared by how her daughter was doing. Of course, when he arrived it turned out to be a completely different panorama than what he expected. When Ryuko opened the door, she didn't look very scared or nervous. She was quite normal and even calmly let him pass and look at the girl who was in her room bed, with a red face and heavy breathing. He could see how he was sweating from his position and the frown he was probably making from the discomfort he was having. Izuku, how is she doing? He looked at the blonde mother who approached her girl, caressing her hair. Ryuko, I managed to get her to sleep, but for the moment she is stable. She continued caressing her daughter's hair, which was stirred a little. I gave her medicine and made sure to lower the temperature. Izuku, you know what caused it? He approached the girl and gently took her hand. Did he eat anything? Did he leave without a coat? Did he play somewhere that might have something? Ryuko, Midoriya-san, calm down. She smiled softly at the green-haired man who turned red with shame. It's just a cold. I know how to treat it, said with a rather fake smile. Izuku, sorry, it's just that I've never been good with topics like that. He smiled nervously, causing the woman to laugh. Ryuko, I appreciate that concern, and the truth is for a moment it seemed to get worse, but it is getting better. Smiled, looking at his daughter. In truth, for a moment he even cried and I was alarmed. That was when I wrote to him. The green-haired man looked at him in amazement. I considered call Rumi, but I know she would go crazy and not help me. Izuku, I understand. He smiled at the woman. Thank you for considering me an option, Ryuko-san. Ryuko, I don't have many acquaintances who know about Ryuta, and I have seen firsthand that you are someone quite dedicated to helping. I'm glad I found you. He smiled innocently, making the freckled man blush. Izuku, it's nothing. He spoke quite nervously. Ryuta, mommy, the girl murmured, opening her eyes, somewhat dazed. Ryuko, here I am, darling. He smiled, stroking his girl's hair. Everything is fine. He kissed her on the forehead, making the girl go back to sleep. Izuku, the best thing would be to go out and let her rest. Took the blonde's hand, calming her down a little. Ryuko, sure. They both went out for something to drink. It was late and it was a little cold. I am sorry if I worried him too much. I really thought he needed help. Izuku, it's better to be cautious. It could have been worse, and as I told you, I will always be there to help you. Ryuko-san drank the tea that the woman had prepared. Ryuko, I hope he hasn't interrupted what he was doing or his hours of sleep. I know firsthand how horrible it is to not get enough sleep, the green-haired man denied. Izuku, don't worry, I was just talking to Mina about the babysitting service and how things are stabilizing. The woman smiled, calmer to hear it. It's been quite long months hiring a lot of people and it's finally paying off. Ryuko, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure the people there put as much dedication as you do. The freckled man smiled, embarrassed to be flattered. Izuku, most of them are very dedicated to taking care of children, but to be honest, I don't consider myself so dedicated. I just always give 100% of myself when doing things. He spoke calmly, plus it's not like I'm there for long. It's just for the money that Mina can give me, so I don't think she can flatter me for that. Ryuko, are you planning on leaving this? When? She spoke worriedly. She highly doubted that her daughter would accept a babysitter other than Izuku. Izuku, don't worry, that still needs to happen. But it's something that will inevitably happen. That didn't seem to relax the woman. Ryuko, we all have our goals and you have to follow yours. Even so, it's a shame you don't continue taking care of the children. You have a very good hand for them. The freckled man laughed. Izuku, they tell me often, but it's not what I want to do. Spoke quite seriously. Ryuko, which is what you plan, Midoriya-san. I mean, if it's not a clear secret. Didn't want to be too intrusive in the green-haired man's life. Izuku, there are projects that mom and dad had that they left for me. Projects that I would like to develop, and for that I need many things. He smiled, remembering his dream. I am sorry, I can't say more, but it's still too early to say. He looked determinedly at the woman who was more curious. Don't worry, Ryuko-san will be the first outside of my parents to whom I will inform when I achieve my goal. Ryuko, in that case, I support everything you plan. Midoriya-san, I know it will be quite incredible and good coming from someone so determined. They both looked at each other with quite renewed spirits, without knowledge of what was being born deep inside them. Both. Enji Todoroki was in a very serious dilemma thanks to the call of his eldest son. He left many questions in the air with the case of that guy named Kigo. The main one was his relationship with Tuya, and although he could be a close friend of his son, it seemed more than that he was using him for something. He didn't quite have the arrangements or deals that those two had made, but it was giving him a bad feeling. He had worked hard enough on rather shady cases to develop a sixth sense that told him when things were not going well, and this was the case. His son was hiding something from him and he knew he was not going to tell him. He tried to give him a little benefit of the doubt and investigated the man named Kigo, and the truth is, his doubts were partly confirmed quite quickly. The man's case was not something that sounded familiar to him. It was typical of a lively idiot who did not know how children get along and believe that things are done with magic, which did attract attention, or at least Enji, were the drugs that had been found in Kigo's room and in his body, or well, some of all the ones there were, because the clown had the idea of making a cocktail with his body of everything that could enter through your nose and veins. Some of those drugs had also been found in his son, both in his possession as in your system. How he recognized her was quite easy, the reports detailed it. Even with all that information, he was doubting whether to help his son. Maybe all this is a plan to take advantage of something related to Kigo, but on the other side of the coin, the guy may have really learned his lesson and tried to redeem himself. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that ever happened in Enji's desk. He had to think carefully, because if he made the mistake, he would condemn an innocent girl to one of the worst tortures. I laughed. Something's wrong with you. Of course his wife noticed it, and when they were finally going to sleep, she decided to talk about it. As always when something was wrong, Enji Tuya called, he revealed calmly, leaving his wife quite shocked. He wants my help with something, and the truth is I don't know if I should do it. He took off his tie, feeling much calmer. Ray, what happened this time? She left the book she was reading on the table next to the bed and paid attention to her husband. Enji, how he always asks for impossible, though this time it sounds more impossible. He turned to look at his wife, who seemed quite nervous. Ray, last time she wanted you to get him out of jail even though his guilt was clear. Her husband looked at the bed, pondering his options. Enji, Tuya was lost a long time ago. You have tried by all possible means to reach him and he has always refused. Maybe it is time to leave him. She put her hand on her husband's to calm him down. Enji, he is still my son. It doesn't matter if I have to put my hand in lava to get him half dead. I would do it without hesitation. He put his other hand on his wife's, feeling comforted, but this time he wants to separate a girl from his mother because her friend and father of the girl has supposedly changed. Ray, and you don't think he did it, do you? The redhead denied seriously. Enji, people like that guy hardly change and only do so when they really hit rock bottom like no one else on the plane. The new guys like that, well, he had sent them to prison countless times. Ray, Enji, the woman attracted the gaze of her partner. Do not break up a family to rebuild the family that was broken up a long time ago and has no solution. We made mistakes, yes, but he made them too. Her husband still looked quite confused. Are you willing to leave a girl in the wrong hands just for a son who has already turned his back on you on multiple occasions? Enji, no. His wife smiled. It's not fair to involve anyone outside in all this, and I can't help Tuya with whatever he's doing. His wife kissed him on the cheek and lay down. Thank you for making me see reason. Ray 20. Ray, sometimes you can be a hopeless fool. That's why I'm here to stop your feet. She smiled before trying to sleep, so her husband came out to make the call to her son. It was the right option. He couldn't do what his son expected. As much as it hurts him to have to deny him something, this far exceeded his limits. His wife was absolutely right. At this point it was no longer worth repairing this fractured relationship. Enji, he's going to take it very badly. He tried to relax as best as possible for this call. It wouldn't be easy at all. Tuya, hello Dad. I didn't expect you to call so soon. He spoke calmly and as affectionately as he could. He was sure he convinced his old man. Enji, yes. Hello Tuya, he said seriously. I'm sorry to report that I can't help with your friend. There was no response from his son, or at least not immediate. Tuya, any specific reason? He spoke annoyed. I'm your son, how can you not support me this time? He tried to manipulate that part of his father like years ago, only this time it was totally different. Enji, listen carefully Tuya, this friend of yours went to prison for 4 years for negligence. He was found quite badly, far from where he should be, and you are telling me that he changed overnight and that he loves his daughter when he never showed any remorse or any effort to see her even while in prison? There was silence again. I'm sorry, but until he proves that he has really changed and shows that he can support his daughter, I doubt that anyone will accept this case, and even if they accept it, the worst will always be expected of him. For a moment he forgot that he was talking to his son and acted like he was talking to anyone else. Tuya, if Kiko shows that he has changed, is there an opportunity? I was already beginning to devise another plan. Enji's the standard, but I repeat it, no matter what he does, he will always be in your sights if he gets the girl. He spoke seriously, hoping to make the idiot he had as his son see reason. I don't know what they are doing. Tuya, planning, but thinks with a cold head it may end badly for both him and you. His last warning to his son. Tuya, if I doubt it, all I want is to reunite a family. Was a clear lie. Enji, you're never going to change, are you? He said bitterly. I doubt you want to do that, and if they manage to put the woman on trial, believe me, I will do everything in my power to get the truth out. Without further ado he hung up the call and let out a sigh. Ray, you did the right thing. Touched her husband's shoulder, who looked quite sad. Enji, he let out a sigh. I'm so sorry. Ray, it's the past. Enji, things have already changed. She took her husband by the hand to take him to the room. We have all moved forward, and if Tuya continues in the same way at this point, it is no longer our problem or our responsibility. He is an adult and she can do things on her own. Her husband nodded slowly. Enji, thank you for being there for me. Ray smiled sideways, which was the most he would show that day. Ray, don't even mention it. Smiled fondly, praying that nothing bad happens with this situation. On Saturday afternoon both Ryuko and her daughter were having a great day. On Saturdays she loved going out with Ryuta to a nearby restaurant to eat something, so that the girl wouldn't feel like the apartment was a prison. He would love to go out with his daughter more, but he always ran the risk of Kiko appearing and making a fuss. He didn't want that about Ryuta. It was hard enough having to explain to him about his father and why he wasn't with her. She hadn't lied to him by any means, she was just avoiding the topic, and Ryuta seemed quite calm by ignoring that fact, so she had no problems, or so for the moment. Every now and then she asked about Kiko, and Ryuko didn't really know how to answer him. Ryuko, what did you think of Ryuta's food? He asked as he entered the house. Ryuta he was rich she spoke half asleep, she was so full that she wanted to sleep. Ryukyu alright my little big dragon, it's time for your nap took her little girl in her arms and went to the room quite happy that the day didn't get stressful Ryuta mommy, can I ask you something? He murmured, clinging to his mother. Ryuko whatever honey spoke tenderly before leaving her on the bed. Ryuta Ishuku replied that the three of us would go somewhere she yawned, leaving the blonde quite surprised I want the three of us to go she murmured before falling asleep in her bed. Ryukerus darling she kissed him on the forehead, put a blanket on him and came out quite curious about what her daughter said, so when she left the room the first thing she did was call her friend Midoriya-san. Izuku Riko-san, what a surprise that I called was heard on the other end of the phone something happens. Ryuta-kun is sick again? Her worry made him smile, it was nice to have someone who cared about her little girl besides her. Rukono, she's fine, in fact today she ate so much that she's taking a nap. The green-haired man on the other end of the phone let out a sigh although she's part of the reason I'm calling. Izuku sure, what does Ryuta-kun need? He spoke animatedly, ready to help the girl. Ryuko has Ryuta told you anything about going out somewhere? He commented as he sat in his living room to look out the window. Izuku oh that her tone changed to something more nervous which seemed completely strange to the blonde and after our departure that Saturday, she left a moment for the woman to process the information. That day was not easy for either of them. Ryuko please tell me you didn't say something stupid he murmured embarrassedly. Izuku no, of course not, only the next week when I was taking care of her I was angry because we went out alone without her. The woman stopped her thoughts. Listening to the boy she didn't like being excluded so Elle told her that the three of us would go out sometime. The blonde was almost speechless with that. Ryuko and I understand she tried to sound calm but it was obvious that she was more emotional. Did she say anything else? He let out a sigh trying to calm down Izuku. Nothing else. He waited for the blonde to respond but nothing. Ruko-san? Rukothas she rambled for a moment thinking about that exit one she was getting nervous. Izuku would you like us to go with Ryuta-kun somewhere? He sounded as calm as possible so as not to upset the blonde any further. Ryuko I don't want to bother you with that, you've been taking care of Ryuta long enough to ask for more he said with a blush on his cheeks. Surely you have better things to do than spend time with a woman and her daughter he commented. With some sadness. Izuku Ruko-san he spoke in disbelief. You're my friend, I'm not saying pay me to go somewhere with your daughter. I want to go out with you and Ryuta-kun he said calmly, surprising the blonde. The last time we went out I had a great time and the truth is I was waiting for you to be free so I could continue chatting as much as the first time. With each word he made the blonde blush more. It's fun to talk to you and it's fun to be with Ryuta-kun so please he begged, making the blonde smile. Ryuko come on he tried to calm down although he didn't seem to succeed. Okay Midoriya-san, you and let's go out this Sunday with Ryuta, he smiled, looking at the sky through the window with a smile on his face. Izuku it seems perfect to him said calmly in fact I think I know where to go. Ryu Coriolis? Spoke with emotion where? Izuku I am sorry Ruko-san but you'll have to wait for Sunday to arrive to find out he said with a mocking tone. Ryuko come on. How bad you are he murmured with a pout, making the freckled man on the other end of the line laugh. Give me even a clue. Izuku I can't, I have to confirm things before I go. The blonde continued with a pout without wanting to accept defeat. Don't worry Ruko-san it will be fun. Ryuko whatever you say. Mr. Mystery made fun of the freckled man a little and let out a laugh. Izuku-an, he didn't quite understand the reason for the woman's annoyance. Ryuko nothing, see you later Midoriya-san. Without waiting for a response she hung up and held the phone on her chest letting out a sigh. His can't be happening she murmured somewhat dazed. The way she acted with the green-haired man told her. He returned to those moments with Kigo, before the arguments or the crazy things he did. I don't want to believe it, please let it be a joke. Things were going like this, it was clear that she was closer to being in love than she thought. It can't be she didn't want to admit it but it was difficult for her not to when she felt how her chest jumped of joy thinking about going out with his daughter and the babysitter. All week that remained in her mind, morning, afternoon, and night she kept in mind the talk with the green-haired man and what he made her feel with each word. Perhaps it was because of all the time she had been alone or because of the fact that the freckled man really he was very interested in his daughter and her care. He continued to refuse that special feeling of affection. They were friends and nothing more. They had no relationship beyond being a babysitter and client. There was no reason to get upset. At some point the green-haired man would leave all this and I was thinking about it a lot. I would just enjoy the surprise that the green-haired man had for them. it was not the time to think about feelings that he clearly did not have for the green-haired man. Izuku, good morning Ryukyu, are you ready for this day? Smiling and dressed quite relaxed, the green-haired man entered the Tatsuma house like the sun through the window, leaving the blonde stunned, because he couldn't take his eye off her. Ruka, thank you for inviting us. Midoriya-san, mother and daughter walked hand in hand following the green-haired man towards a convention area. Ryuta, where are we going Izuku? He said, barely containing his excitement at seeing new things. Izuku, it's a surprise Ryuta-kun, you'll have to be quite patient. The girl pouted angrily with the babysitter. Don't worry, it won't take us long to arrive. Ryuko, you're being very enigmatic about this, don't you think? He said jokingly with the freckled man, who smiled sideways before continuing without wanting to respond. Ryuta, mommy, do you know where we're going? He was hoping that his mother would at least have more information. Ryuko, I'm sorry honey, but I don't know anything either. The girl looked at the ground quite defeated. Izuku, Ryuta can be patient, believe me you will love it. Girl looked at the freckled man who was smiling at her. Ryuta, good, that didn't take away the anger he felt for not knowing where they were going. They walked a little more than 20 more minutes in the warm day until they saw a building from which people entered and left, some with costumes and others with some stuffed animals that the girl liked, who began to point out everything she saw with great emotion, that which they hadn't even entered. Ryuko, what is this? She smiled excitedly, almost like her daughter. Izuku, oh, it's the convention of the magical world. Fans of medieval and magical worlds come to this place annually. There are many incredible things to do. The explanation was only heard by the older blonde. The blonde girl was jumping with excitement to see the people dressed as elves, warriors, and there were even orcs. And do you know what Ryuta-kun is best? The girl looked at her babysitter excitedly. Ryuta, what? I wanted to go run around the place and explore everything. Izuku can adopt a dragon. The girl's eyes sparkled with excitement. Ryuta, I want one, he said happily. Izuku'll get to that. For now, we have to go inside, so let's go. Extended his hand to the blonde mother, who seemed quite curious. Let's go, Ryuko-san. Ryuku, yes, smiling with a slight blush, she took the green-haired boy's hand and then lifted her daughter up. Dash extended his hand to the blonde mother, who seemed quite curious. Walking, Ryuko-san. Ryuko, he, yes, smiling with a minimal blush, she took the green-haired man's hand and then picked up her girl. Guianos, Midoriya-san. Izuku, confident, smiling. They advanced towards the entrance while looking at all the people there coming and going. Entry was very easy. They put a bracelet on the three of them, and in Ryuta's case they even gave her a fairy-themed candy. When she entered there were many more people and there were many stalls selling a multitude of things. The girl wanted to go, everyone forgetting about the dragon for the moment. Ryuko, incredible. He advanced hand in hand with the green-haired man, seeing some blacksmiths making weapons with strange engravings, elves conjuring magic, and some guys with magical animals that seemed completely real. How did you find this event? The freckled man seemed determined to go to a specific point. Izuku, oh, when I was in college I saw this event born. My good friend Kurashima wears this, and although it took us a long time to achieve it, we achieved a lot. They had finally left the place a little admiring something even more spectacular. Ryuta, look mommy, a dragon. He pointed towards the sky where there was indeed a red dragon flying. Ryuko, huh? It looked too real, which surprised him. Izuku, that's probably Kaminari's work, he's a special effects expert. The dragon came down until it was on the ground quite far from where the three of them were. Story continues below. Ryuta, let's see it. He pulled his mother's arm a little, who looked a little indecisive. Izuku, come on, Ryuko-san is not dangerous. The freckled man supported the girl, who was too expectant. Ryuko, I guess it's okay. The babysitter and the little blonde looked at each other, smiling triumphantly. There were quite a few people surrounding the big beast that moved as if it were a trained animal doing exactly what a blonde who was commanding it wanted. In particular, there were many children surrounding the beast that launched fire, making shapes in the air, amusing everyone. Ryuko, Ryuta, and Izuku stayed a little far away at the request of the older blonde, who was afraid that her daughter would get lost if she took her eyes off her. It was an amazing spectacle, with the dragon perfectly following all the instructions that blonde gave, flying around all the people, letting out deafening screams and launching flames that he then used to light parts of the stage before disappearing into a cloud of smoke, and an egg appearing where he was at the beginning, taking the applause of everyone there, who slowly left, leaving the blonde to prepare a new show. Izuku, wow, From making figures with sticks and bad editing to a large dragon in the middle of an important event, the freckled man's voice stopped the blonde, who turned to look at him. Kaminari, the bushes came to life, he pointed to the freckled man, who rolled his eyes gracefully. Izuku. Izuku charged her head. They shook hands with some force. They hadn't seen each other in years. Kaminari, where had you been? Do you know how difficult it was to maintain this without you? His friend looked tense. Izuku, you know I can't sit still in one place. The blonde laughed. He understood perfectly. Kaminari, how curious that you came. You always reject the invitations that Kurashima sends you. The freckled man scratched the back of his neck with shame. Izuku, I had to keep a promise, smiled embarrassedly, making his friend deny gracefully. Kaminari, you never change, huh? The freckled man laughed. Leg, who looked at her gracefully. Ryuta. Izuku. The girl hugged the green-haired man's. Izuku. Ryuta-kun caressed the girl's hair and smiled. Kaminari, hey Izuku, she is. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Izuku, oh no, don't think strange things. She picked up the girl, who looked at the blonde. Ryuta-kun is a dragon tamer. The girl looked at him with excitement. Ryuta, amazing, I want it too, he revealed with emotion. Ruka, maybe when you grow up a little older, commented the mother gracefully, making her girl pout. Ryuta, but mommy, her mother stroked her hair. Rukoyuri, still too small for that, the girl continued with her pout, making the trainer stunned. Kaminari, he Izuku. The freckled man looked at him, knowing where things were going. Can we talk alone for a moment? Izuku's not my wife, and she's not my biological daughter. She's my friend Rukosen, and I'm Ryuta-kun's babysitter. The blonde paralyzed for a few seconds, scaring the woman a little. Ryuko, is he okay? The blonde didn't seem very steady. Izuku, oh, yes, sure, it's just that he always goes crazy when I'm very close to a girl. It happened with my friend Melissa when I was helping her with something, and it happened with my friend Kyoka when she asked me for help with her work. The woman seemed quite surprised. I'll be fine. Ryuka, sure. She looked somewhat incredulously at the blonde. Kaminari, como ravos tienes tanta suerte? Murmuró Melissa when I was helping her with a topic, and it happened with my friend Kyoka when she asked me for help at her work. The woman seemed quite amazed at it. We'll be fine. Ryuka, sure. She looked at the blonde somewhat incredulously. Kaminari, how the hell are you so lucky? He murmured angrily. Ryuta, this Mr. Tamer, he spoke nervously. Kaminari, tell me, baby tried to calm down a little. Ryuta, can you show more dragons? He asked embarrassedly. Kaminari smiled at the girl to step on one side, showing how the egg began to move until a green dragon emerged that roared when it looked at the girl. Ryuta, amazing, she screeched excitedly, looking at the small dragon that came out of her egg. Kaminari, I think I'm melting with tenderness. He murmured, watching his friend lower the girl who was approaching the dragon. Izuku, be the way, how are you achieving this? He whispered to his friend who came to. Kaminario, it's a mechanical puppet. While it's on the ground I can move it with the panel on my feet. When it's in the air it's a projection made by drones. I use smoke and light to make it look better. Ruka, that's incredible, admired the blonde, who smiled proudly. Kaminari, yes I know, I'm amazing. He spoke proudly, making his friend sigh. Izuku, don't even try. Kaminari, remember he has a daughter. The blonde sweated tensely, being revealed by his friend. Kaminari, you have a very valid point Izuku, he said, somewhat embarrassed. Izuku, as if he didn't know you, drumhead, he murmured, mocking his friend who smiled tensely. Ryukov held back her laughter as she watched the freckled boy handle the situation. Ryuko smiled as she walked home with a couple of bags in her hands, looking towards the freckled man who was carrying Ryuta, asleep and with a cat-painted face along with a princess tiara. It had been a very lively and exhausting day. They had spent the whole day going around doing mainly what the girl wanted, seeing all kinds of things and also taking too many photos to remember such a splendid day. Ruka, thank you again for this day. Midoriya. Freckled man turned to look at her, smiling with the girl in his arms. Izuku, it was nothing, I'm glad you enjoyed the day, continued on his way with the blonde to a rather cheerful side of how things were turning out. Ryuko, are you sure you can carry Ryuta? You must be tired too. The freckled man smiled sideways, adjusting the girl he was carrying better. Izuku, I'm fine, it doesn't weigh much. The girl clung tighter, hugging the freckled man, feeling a little cold, although it would be best to hurry up. Ryuko, I agree with that, I don't want her to get sick again. They walked in a rather pleasant silence. By the way, do you know how the egg thing works? I've never had anything like it, and I don't know how it's activated at the event. They gave away dragon eggs that supposedly hatched long enough. Izuku, it's just giving him time. As the days go by he will break the shell and leave a toy dragon, that's all explained, arriving at the building. Ryuko I understand opened the door and smiled at the freckled man. Midoriya-san is fine up to this point. I can take care of it from here. Izuku I don't think it's a good idea to wake Ryuta-kun and you look pretty tired too, let me help you a little more the blonde grimaced. Ryuko you won't take no for an answer, will you? The freckled boy smiled somewhat defiantly. In the elevator there was a disturbing silence, the blonde looked somewhat irritated at the freckled man who seemed completely oblivious to her. It made her angry that the green-haired man is that hard-headed. It was clear that he was exhausted from the day. On more than one occasion she saw him drinking those energizing things so as not to fall tired on the floor. He had worked hard to give them an unforgettable day and he had achieved it. He needed to find a way to be grateful for everything he had done for both of them. Izuku when we arrived he laid the girl on the bed and left there letting her sleep. Ryuko seriously, you shouldn't have Midoriya-san, I could bring Ryuta. Freckled man scratched the back of his neck with shame. Izuku doesn't matter, see you another day Ryuko-san, I hope to be able to go out with you more, it's fun to spend time by your side he smiled innocently, leaving the blonde somewhat red. Ryuko feeling is mutual I like spending time by your side, he admitted embarrassedly, embarrassing the green-haired man. Izuku yo see you another day he walked towards the door when he was stopped by the doll Ryukosa the words remained in the air when the woman kissed him. On the cheek Ryuko a small token of gratitude whispered in the boy's ear leaving him quite static. Izuku the woman smiled watching the green-haired man turn into a living strawberry me. Ryuko see you another day Midoriya-san with a rather adorable smile accompanied the boy to the door. Izuku see you later Ryuko-san he murmured dazedly, saying goodbye to the woman who closed the door moments after he walked to the elevator, collapsing behind the door. Ryuko, what did I just do? He questioned himself, feeling how he turned red with every second. In the elevator the freckled man was trying to calm down, he felt his heart go very fast and it was leaving him deaf because it was beating so hard, it had caught him completely off guard and it was leaving him with too many questions in his mind to process one by one. He looked too dazed on the way down to the lobby of the building and he was still pretty stupid there. Fortunately the cold night wind brought him to reality so he left there, a little more cheerful than he entered, straight home to finally sleep, or so was the idea. Keeganus night, don't you think? The guy's voice stopped the freckled man who was turning the corner towards the train station. Izuku, Tatsumi-san stalker mocked the blonde a little who tensed up a little at the nickname. Kigo I'm not a stalker and you're not his neighbor, we all lie he smiled, believing he had the green-haired man in a bad position. Izuku why wouldn't he be your neighbor? He raised his eyebrow confused, the blonde had not achieved his goal. Kigo because you don't live next door to her like you said, that place is very expensive for you he mocked the boy hoping to make him explode with anger, that was good for that he had to admit Izuku is this because you saw me leave the building? 1. Think he's confused, I'm going to visit a cousin, the poor guy is sick and my aunt asked me for help, I'm just being nice although of course I don't expect a stalker to understand it he said very calmly and with a radiant smile. Kigo you think you're funny, huh? He smiled tensely at such a character. Izuku I'm sorry for the insults but you started pointing out things you don't know, if you're just here for that, I'm afraid I have to go you just turned around to continue on your way. Kigo no. I also want you to stay away from Ryuko. Freckled man braked in the first step he took. Izuku and why, Mr. Stalker? Why is it yours? The blonde smiled superiorly I'm afraid to tell you that Tatsumi-san is free to decide who enters and leaves her life, it is not something you can possess, you are nothing more than the stalker she has. Kigo I don't know what we've been through. Whatever I know about her I hoped I could scare the boy or make him angry so I had what I needed. Izuku I don't care what she did or what happened, she is now an incredible woman and that's what counts, it's what she is now that causes people to go to her, not what she was. I truly pity you, sir. You stayed stuck in the past, unwilling to move forward. The blonde was starting to get angry with this guy who avoided everything he did. Kigo you know that girl isn't your daughter, right? Given that he didn't seem to be achieving anything, he would use rather low tricks she bought her from an idiot. That girl is my daughter, and she is just a kidnapper. Izuku interesting story he seemed to think about it for a few seconds just to encourage the blonde to continue. Kika that's right, they kidnapped my daughter when she was a baby and so far I have managed to find her whereabouts. Please help me get to her I knew I had the freckled one, people were too stupid nowadays. Izuku eyes the thing is that Ryuta looks a lot like Rukosan and doesn't look anything like you, despite being the biological father. He last thought about it, although it was a reality. Ryuta, he has the same hair, same eye color, and how could I see the same smile today? He smiled, having a bad idea. Kiko hat, do you say? He smiled tensely and nervous. Izuku, for a stalker, he doesn't do very well today. The three of us went out and had a lot of fun. He smiled innocently, knowing what was causing. I could see firsthand the amazing smile of both of them, how their eyes shine when they discover anything new. He smiled, remembering his day. I know that they are mother and daughter, and they know it too. He turned around, ready to leave. That's all that matters, and it doesn't matter what someone with little credibility says. It won't be enough to change reality. Without further ado, he left, leaving the blonde paralyzed along the way. Kiko rarely found anything that could upset him in a bad way. He was always someone quite calm, capable of manipulating anyone in front of him, or, failing that, causing what he wanted in other people. He worked with a multitude of girls to have fun with her, and he worked with a multitude of guys to get a lot of money. He sincerely hoped to upset Ryuko's neighbor enough to start a fight with Kiko, and with that display of excessive use of force take a strong case to court and thus convince everyone that neither Ryuko nor Ryuta were living in a good place, that it was dangerous for a girl to live there. It was the perfect plan, except why it didn't work at all. In his life he had rarely met someone who could surpass him in the field of speech. He didn't even remember the last time he felt so helpless and angry towards a specific person. Maybe it was when he was in high school and a guy quite nerdy overtook him in an argument. Kiko went crazy and sent him to the hospital quite injured. Although it could have been later in his story, the fact was that until that night he had not felt such a loss, and he was not going to let it go. Mainly due to the fact that she recognized the danger that green-haired guy and his big mouth were. If she came to a case against Ryuko, it was clear that she would have the broccoli boy with her, and it would be impossible to get the money with that. I needed to get him out of the way, and luckily I had very good contact to do so. Tuya, I think you smoked the worst. His black-haired friend complained about his idea. Kiko, come on Dabi, surely you know someone who can do the job. The black-haired man drank, ignoring the blonde for the moment. You always say that you know a lot of people. You have to have some contact. Oh, did you never reach that decision? The black-haired man became tense. He knew it. Tuya, look, it was a totally different situation. Someone was too smart, and a friend of a friend of a friend of his cousin from his father's brother-in-law gave me the name of someone who could do that job. The blonde looked at him, interested in that contact. I spoke little with him, and I can say which was very effective, but its cost is not something you can afford. Kiko, I don't think it's that big of a deal. How much did he charge you? He said with absolute calm, as if the money were no problem for him. Tuyato, you know how much a private jet costs? Because it's close to that. The blonde remained static, blinking repeatedly without believing it, although of course I wanted someone quite well known to disappear, that if I remember correctly inflated the price. Kiko, you know, I'm starting to think you have a strange fetish for scaring me away. He spoke tensely. Whatever, tell me how to contact him. Tuya, stop there, little blonde princess. It is true that my situation inflated the price, but it does not mean that at first it was not excessive, and I remind you that you can barely buy water. How do you plan to pay if you do not even have any source of income? The blonde looked at the ceiling, thinking about his options, quickly looking at his friend. Don't even believe it. I doubt you want to increase your debt to me. Kiko, you're right about that. I had very limited options. I think my mother had something of value hidden in the brothel. I'll have to go see it. She just came out, leaving the black-haired man sighing with irritation. Tuya, yes, he is determined to get him out of the way. I don't think it's that big of a deal. He's literally the best charlatan in the world. I highly doubt that someone like that green guy could stand up to him. That raised his doubts, and if he wanted his slice of the pie he needed more information. Kiko's mother was a woman with quite a few problems that could almost be on par with her son. She had lived in continuous excesses, doing anything to fill that addiction until she had a son. At first, if he felt the need to protect and love Kiko, he believed for a few years that he could give something good to the world with that child. He even had the support of Kiko's father until he found a much younger woman, completely breaking Kiko, the woman, and making her fall even deeper. She tried not to take her son with her, doing everything possible to ensure that he had the necessary studies to go far away, although it did not turn out so well. Kiko ended up on the wrong path and was now much worse than her, and did not hesitate to do what was necessary for the money and what he could do with it. How to illegally enter his mother's room and take everything to get enough to pay for a serial killer that I didn't even know. He couldn't achieve much, but at least he hoped it was enough to get the green-haired boy's head. Thanks to Dabi, He had managed to get a quick meeting at the bar where they usually go. The only thing I knew about the guy was that he's someone very easy to recognize. Kigo, although he is easy to recognize, he murmured as he entered the bar. He walked towards the bar to see, finding a fairly tall guy in one of the chairs maybe. Hey, his strong voice caught Kigo's attention. Yuri, the one from work who said Dobby, right? He spoke too calmly, which scared the blonde a little. Kigo, if it's me. He said cautiously, I heard about your abilities from Dobby and I need them. The guy smiled sideways, drinking his beer. Who is the one who should disappear? He looked at the blonde, who felt quite nervous when he saw the great guy and his lack of an eye. Too. Kigo is. He revealed a photo of the freckled man in which he appeared with the girl, and the blonde woman is the green guy. He looked at the guy carefully, already imagining the screams he would make. You don't see someone very strong or too dangerous, it won't be a problem. Kigo, then the guy took the photo quite excitedly. The payment is given after work and you better not think about running away with the money, because I assure you that you won't be able to escape. He smiled quite grimly, managing to scare the blonde. Kigo, I don't think my legs can run very far. He smiled tensely at the murderer who left money at the bar and left there. I guess the time has come, neighbor, he murmured before asking for something to drink. It was time to celebrate because his plan was coming out perfect. He let out a sigh, looking in the mirror one last time, making sure he didn't have something wrong with his clothes or his face or his hair. The truth is that she was getting carried away by the excitement of going out with Ryuko again, between the fact that she took care of Ryuta and that she had multiple things to do in her company. They had not been able to specify something exact. A lot of problems appeared on both sides that did not they let them go comfortably. Fortunately, 2 weeks before what could be considered a family outing, they had been able to make their appointment. They were just going out for a walk and eat ice cream, talking about what they couldn't the first time they went out, and they had so much to ask the woman about everything. It was strange, but Izuku felt too comfortable next to the blonde. He felt an inner peace like he had never felt with anyone, and the fact that she only accepted his way out made him extremely happy and unstoppable. He didn't believe that anything could ruin that feeling. Izuku, very good. He cleaned his red shirt again and let out another sigh, letting his nerves go away. Here we go. Taking a cap to avoid the dangerous sun, he left the house to go on his date. His date was almost the same as him, encouraged to be able to chat with the boy who caused him so much intrigue. There were a lot of things that he could spend hours talking about, and they still didn't seem like enough for Ryuko. Combing her hair, she simply imagined what was going to happen on said date, smiling at her silly and simple thought. She looked more like a schoolgirl than an adult woman, and surely if she mentioned it to Rumi he would make fun of her ad nauseam. Rumi, have you already realized that you fell for a boy again? She commented, lying on the door frame, worried about her friend. Ruka, thank you for protecting me so much, Rumi. I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart that you were always there for me even before Ryuta brightened my life, she commented, trying to win her friend's affection. Rumi, you can't convince me with pretty words, she said seriously. Ryuko, come on, Midoriya-san, you don't like him because he has the ability to beat you at what you know how to do perfectly. You resent him for that. The white-haired girl looked to the side, feeling hurt. Besides, I still haven't fallen for a boy. After what happened with Kigo, I've watched my step and I know what to do. She got up, grabbing some sunglasses and heading towards the door. Rumi, just be careful, you know things aren't what they seem, she commented as she crossed the threshold. Ryuko, I'll keep that in mind. Thanks. She gave her friend a hug and went towards the exit. When Ryuta wakes up, tell him that Midoriya-san and I will bring him something, okay? Rumi, yes, she commented listlessly. She wouldn't admit it, but she was a little scared about how this might turn out. Their meeting point was a park near both their houses, a nice and quiet place to stroll in the afternoon after a busy day in which they knew they would spend a pleasant time together. Both of them, away from all the problems they might have. Izuku-san. He called the blonde who was at the entrance to the park. Ryuko, Midoriya-san. He greeted the boy who looked somewhat restless. Blonde. Izuku, I am sorry I'm late, it took me a while to buy something, she smiled, showing a box that excited the Ryuko, a cake. The freckled man looked extremely embarrassed. Izuku, slices for both of us. When we went with Ryuta to the event I saw her very focused on sweets. I assumed she wanted to try the blonde's eyes. Shane quite excitedly. Ruka, thank you very much. Midoriya-san smiled happily at the freckled man who smiled calmly. Come, we have to find a good place to eat. Taking the boy by the arm they entered the park for a fun afternoon Story continues below. They didn't know they were being followed by that killer. Hiko had hired who, he had been gathering information about the green-haired man, and although the blonde had not told him absolutely anything, he did tell him about the woman who seems too delighted with him, so he was very patient following her movements until he had a good time with the two of them, quite fond of each other. In the middle of a park, he just had to wait and make his move. He couldn't do it in broad daylight, it would attract a lot of unwanted attention and too many problems for him. He couldn't hurt the woman either because she was important to the idiot who hired him. The job was difficult, he had to accept that, not enough to consider increasing the cost but quite difficult, and the best he could do what he liked most. Do a bloodbath with a person. Their date continued, seeing how they ate cake and how they talked about who knows what. They walked throughout the park causing laughter and smiles that the great murderer was not interested in. He was getting desperate for his bloody bath, and his desire to hit the green boy's perfect face was only increasing. Their opportunity came when the sun completely set, and the lights of the park blurred everyone's vision. At that time there were few left in said park, and among them was the couple, so innocent and unaware that evil lurked in the undergrowth, which almost caused compassion, just almost. Izuku, I had a great time with you, Rikosen. I didn't expect you to be so crazy when you were studying. The woman smiled, embarrassed. Ryuko, you did crazy things too. What was it about getting in the middle of an assault to save someone you didn't know? Complained to the boy who was quite nervous. Izuku, that was different. You fought with your entire school. Sistine counterattacked in an ingenious way. Ryukyu, it wasn't that big of a deal alone. Before continuing, she was pushed back by the freckled man, just as a fist fell to the ground. Izuku, were you okay, Rikosen? He looked at the woman who was quite stunned to see the fist on the ground. Ryukyu, before talking about the undergrowth, a rather tall man with blonde hair and a neurotic smile came out, wearing military pants and a shirt that barely covered his body. Wow, you are much more elusive and attentive than I, though the smiled, looking at the freckled man who was serious. Izuku, who are you? He spoke coldly, making the guy smile. He, the dead, do not need to know the name of their executioner. In a quick movement he appeared on the freckled man, launching a powerful right hand. Ryukyu, Izuku, he shouted in fear. The boy was not going to come out alive. Izuku, one think you have a long way to go to call yourself an executioner. He spoke calmly, surprising both the murderer and the blonde, who looked in disbelief at how the freckled man held the fist of the enormous subject in his hand. This is more interesting than I thought. He smiled excitedly, jumping back. It's been a long time since I found someone to fight me, he. His heart began to rise with emotion. Izuku, you know, if you leave me alone this could end well for both of us, he continued with his imperturbable calm. I don't think so. We will fight to the death and even beyond that. He ran towards the freckled man, who let out a sigh. Izuku, I don't want to show myself as wild in front of Rikosen, but if you don't leave me a choice. The freckled man jumped on the guy, avoiding the killer's deadly attack. Enough dead fly talk, let's fight. He launched his powerful blow with his right elbow that was stopped by the freckled man's knee. Izuku, if you say so, smiled in a rather gloomy way from the vision of the woman present. Don't blame me later because you can't move. In a risky movement the freckled man jumped, following the blonde's push, moving quite far away from him. You will not escape. He launched himself against the green-haired man, who ran for the match. With a powerful blow to the stomach he stopped the great murderer, making him retreat enough to kick the guy in the face, breaking his nose much more easily than the blonde expected, and then continue with another kick to the face, leaving him on the ground. Without wasting time he climbed on top of the guy, repeatedly and frantically hitting the bion's abdomen, who in less than he expected was close to unconsciousness, so in one movement he grabbed the freckled man from behind in a deadly hug, trying to break his bones. With a quick reaction, the freckled man threw a headbutt backwards, hitting the aggressive guy again, who reflexively let the green-haired man free, who took his left arm and with a quick movement broke it mercilessly, making the blonde let out a heartbreaking scream that caught the attention of many more people who were there. Izuku, what's wrong? Wouldn't you be an executioner? Pulling the guy's arm, he kicked him in the throat, making him lean in for another kick in the face and then a punch that left him on the ground. Dare to get up and I swear the next thing I break is your neck, threatened angrily before turning to look at the blonde, who was quite shocked. Rikosen, he said with fear. The woman seemed to wake up from her dream, walking towards the freckled. Well, I'm sorry you Had to see that, he murmured when the blonde was quite close. Me, I understand if you. Before continuing, the blonde put a hand on the freckled man's cheek. Ryuko, you're stained with blood, he spoke calmly, leaving the freckled man quite surprised. Are you okay? He smiled at the boy, who didn't understand why the blonde acted like that. Izuku, yo si pero tu, la mujer sonrió de lado. Notably had. Ryuko, that guy scared me a little, but you, the freckled one, lowered her gaze in embarrassment. You were great, Midoriya-san. She took the freckled boy's face in her hands, forcing him to look. Thank you, she hugged the stunned boy, who only returned the gesture. They walked in silence towards the woman's apartment after resolving things with the police. It's not that the guy said much, being closer to death than life thanks to blows to the head, but he was someone known by law like a dangerous murderer, for which the freckled man was greatly thanked for stopping him in his tracks. Of course it wasn't the best way to end a date. Izuku felt terrible about this event and really hoped that the blonde had a bad thought about what the freckled guy could be. Izuku, this Rukosen. The woman looked at him with a small smile on her face. About what happened, the woman stopped, giving the green-haired man all her attention. I understand if you no longer want to hire me to take care of Ryukin, he said, discouraged. Ryuko, would you think that? The freckled man looked at him quite incredulously. Izuku, am I potentially dangerous to Ryukin? The woman giggled. Ryukatade only showed me that potentially in a situation that puts Ryuta's life at risk you will go out to defend her. The freckled man still didn't believe what the woman was saying. She may have seemed a little dazed when you were fighting and after that, but I've never seen anyone fight like that. And look, Rumi loves to fight with anyone, he commented the last thing gracefully. Izuku, so you don't think I can do something wrong? The woman smiled kindly. Ryuko, Midoriya-san, you were able to do bad things since we met. The freckled man looked at him in amazement. When you first came to take care of Ryuta, you were able to do many horrible things to him without me realizing it, and you were even able to continue doing them afterwards, but instead you complied with what you said, and you have always acted with great kindness and kindness. I highly doubt you can do anything I would consider bad. Izuku, the woman put a hand on the boy's shoulder to calm him down. Ryuko, you are the best person I have ever met. Midoriya, Izuku, thank you for everything you do every day for me. He smiled tenderly at the freckled man, who blushed a little. Izuku, I am glad you think that about my Ruka-san. Smiled satisfied with this. Ryuko, now that you're calmer, let's continue. Rumi is probably about to do something stupid if we don't show up quickly, he commented gracefully. Izuku, if you say so. He hurried to keep up with the woman. I'm seriously sorry that things ended like this. I didn't want something so dangerous for a date. Ryuko, it was quite interesting to see you in action. I guess Rumi was right about you, Mr. Danger, mocked the freckled man, who let out a laugh. Izuku, having the friend you have, I really thought you had seen amazing fights before. The woman denied gracefully. Ryuko, Rumi always considered that she was too violent for someone as innocent as me, so I never saw her in battle, although she always came to my door with a new wound. She let out a sigh, remembering those times. She seemed like a mother at that time, taking care of her. Izuku, so that you are such a good mother comes in your genetics, he concluded, leaving the woman somewhat amazed. Ryuko, I don't think she's that good of a mother. I don't think I can even match an ordinary mother, she murmured, disappointed in herself. Izuku, I don't think the term common mother exists. The woman looked at him somewhat incredulously. Each mother has different ways of doing things. You are an incredible mother, Rukosen, one capable of turning into a dragon for her daughter. The woman, he blushed slightly, letting out a laugh. Ryuko, thank you, Midoriya-san, she smiled, getting a little closer to the freckled man, who noticed she was a little cold. Izuku, no need. The freckled man wrapped his arm around the woman's body in a hug, trying to give her some warmth. Rumi didn't want to sit still at what she had heard from her friend. Ryuko had called her when they were giving a report to the officer who had helped them, and of course she wanted to go solve everything with that guy who attacked her friend, and with her appointment for not defending her, or so at her discretion. The only thing what stopped her was the girl she was taking care of. He wasn't going to leave her alone to go fight, and of course he wasn't going to take her because it would surely traumatize the girl, so to his regret he stayed at home, grumbling with every passing moment. The last news she received from her friend was that she was on her way to the apartment, and that was an hour ago. Rumi, as soon as he arrives he'll see, he murmured, looking at the door insistently. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi, Mom is okay? He was a little afraid of not seeing his mother arrive. Ruma, believe me, brat, if it wasn't okay we would already be going for her. It doesn't take long for her to arrive, and as soon as she opens that door. Before continuing chattering, the door opened, revealing the woman and her date behind it. There you are. He pointed to the blonde, who looked at him quite confused. Ryuko, have I arrived yet? He instantly had his daughter on his lap giving him a hug. Ryuta mommy. The girl was on the verge of tears due to her fear of not seeing her mother. Ruka, hello darling. He crouched down at his daughter's height, hugging her with love. I'm here. Ryuta, I was afraid you didn't arrive. Her mother smiled sweetly, caressing her daughter's hair. Ruka, that's impossible. I was with Midoriya-san and he promised me that he would protect me, he commented to his daughter, who looked at him and then to her babysitter. Ryuta Ishuku. He also approached the freckled man and hugged his leg. Thank you. The freckled man bent down to hug the girl. Izuku, Ryuta neglects. As long as I am here, nothing and no one can hurt them. The girl tightened her hug a little on her babysitter. Rumi, yes, very cute. She spoke seriously, making the blonde sigh. And I have to talk. Yes, friend denied. Ryuko, just let me calm Ryuta down and I'll answer you. The freckled man picked up the girl in his arms and brought her closer to her mother. Izuku, since mother and daughter are reunited, my work is complete. Before leaving the girl in her mother's arms, she caressed her golden hair. See you another day, Ryuta-kun. Ryuta, goodbye Izuku. He commented with some sadness. Izuku, see you later. Rabbit made fun of the white-haired girl who glared at him. Until another day. Ryuko-san smiled at the woman who smiled back. Ryuko, see you another day. Midoriya-san. Without further ado, the freckled man closed the door, leaving a somewhat tense atmosphere. Rumi, and what was that? She shouted to her friend who walked with her daughter in her arms towards the room. Ryuko, are you hungry, Ryuta? The girl denied, much calmer. Well then it's time to sleep. Tomorrow we will do something interesting, okay? The girl nodded, feeling her heavy eyes. Ryuta, I love you mommy. Bua yawned quite adorably before settling better into his mother's arms. Rumi, and ignore me, Ryuko. He shouted again. Ryuko, wait a moment. Without further ado, he went to his daughter's room to sleep. There would be time to talk. Kikoi, our murderer, is too useless, he commented to the black-haired man half asleep on the couch. Because of him now I'm in quite a bit of trouble. Tuya, relax, screaming blonde. The muscle-headed idiot won't talk. He stretched out, quite relaxed about the situation. I highly doubt he'll get out of prison, but at least your secrets are kept pretty well. Kiko, I don't think you realize how horrible the situation is, if you know what. Before continuing, his friend punched him hard, leaving him on the ground. Tuya, shut up for a second and let me sleep, he spoke irritably. Kiko, you really don't understand that if that guy keeps getting close to Ryuko, my chance at money could go away? Shouted the black-haired man, who let out a sigh, refusing to answer. That idiot will get everything that belongs to me. Tuya, that sounds like your problem, not mine, he responded tiredly. Kiko, no, it's both of our problems, or do you forget our deal? He smiled, trying to convince the black-haired man. Tuya, I haven't forgotten that you owe me too much, Kiko, he said calmly, scaring the blonde a little. I've been helping you by letting you stay at my house. I let you eat my food and I let you do whatever you want simply because you said you could get absolutely everything. You owe me, but you haven't done anything. I've had to put a lot into this, my things, my buyers and even my contacts, and you haven't been able to get the money. Literally all you had was for the muscle head and you already smoked that. He stood up quite angrily. So this is what's going to happen. You will leave here. You will get 25% of what you owe me and then I will help you again. Otherwise I will collect everything with your body and your life. Was that clear? He smiled menacingly at the blonde, who paralyzed with fear. Kiko, 25%, huh? It doesn't sound that much, for sure. He smiled tensely at his friend, who returned a mocking smile. Tuya, 25% is 1 million, so you better have them by the end of the week, because if you're not going to see. The blonde nodded, leaving the black-haired man's house. He could be quite scared, with nowhere to go and without many options or places to go. It was literally the worst thing that could happen to him, and yet Kiko was quite calm, thinking about what would be the best option to move forward. Tuya recommended going for a loophole to force the system to give him money from Ryuko, and while he had some data to try to go that route, he didn't feel very prepared for it. If Tuya wasn't asking for money, he could surely acquire more information, but since he wasn't willing to wait any longer, he had no choice but to play everything with his half-winning hand. It wasn't pleasant to show his aces up his sleeve so quickly, but it was a situation desperate. Yes, what do you need? So there he was, about to enter into a legal battle for a girl he neither wants nor is interested in. Kiko, I would like to present a case, smilingly spoke to the receptionist, hoping to have enough for something solid. There wasn't much to take Ryuko for. The woman was impeccable with everything she could have and do. The only thing she could take any advantage of was the mistake of not giving her daughter the proper education. It wasn't to look like a stalker, but in all the time he was watching the woman there were never any Indications that his daughter was due to set apprenticeship, so his choice was based on that. It was enough for the system to raise its eyebrows, or so I expected. Ryuko, for her part, was determined to finish all her tasks for the day so she could go with her daughter and her babysitter. Lately she was too focused on spending more time with both of them, mainly because the green-haired man found a way for his daughter to start. 2. Study on your own. They were going at a slow but sure pace with everything they could teach the sweet girl, and the truth is she was liking this too much. She felt so calm with both of them that they almost seemed like family. He quickly denied such a silly idea. He did not want to think about the freckled man as a possible father of his daughter. He had projects and dreams that would surely be delayed if he had a daughter. He still wanted to advance much further so that he would stop him so. It was a little discouraging to think like that, but it was what it was. The time would come when Izuku continued on his way, and until that happened he was going to take advantage of every moment they had together. So he did the best he could and hurried home and continue with his plans. Fortunately there was no traffic, so his arrival was less than expected. "Ryuko, I'm here," he mentioned, taking off his shoes and leaving them aside. "Ryu to mommy." His daughter ran from the living room hugging her mother from behind. "Ryuko, hello my love." With a kiss he let go of his girl who looked radiant. "Izuku, welcome home." Ryuko-san smiling. The freckled man came out of the kitchen with the apron she used to make food, causing the woman to get a little nervous. "Ruka, hello Midoriya-san." He smiled, trying to maintain his composure. "Izuku, he arrived much earlier than usual. On the one hand I'm glad about it, but on the other hand I still don't have dinner ready," he murmured to himself while the woman did her best not to go crazy. "Ryuko, it's like we're married." Couldn't believe how things changed so quickly. "Ryuta, Izuku, I'm hungry." He looked at the freckled man who smiled at the girl. "Izuku, in a moment I'll give you a dessert. Now you have to finish what I gave you." The girl pouted with some irritation. "It seemed quite unfair. Maybe your mother can help you." The girl smiled, turning towards her mother. "Ryutamami, come here." He took her hand and dragged her towards the living room as the freckled boy chuckled softly. "Ryuko, I'm supposed to keep my emotional distance from him, but still." She looked at the freckled boy who was smiling as he walked towards the kitchen. "All he does is delve deeper and deeper into our lives and our hearts." "Ryuta, look mommy, this is what I did." Showed a sheet with some legible characters. "Ryuko, you move fast." "Ryuta." The girl smiled proudly. "What did that ruthless Midoriya give you?" "Izuku," he was heard from the kitchen. Ryuta. This showed a piece of paper with quite simple words. "This bores me." He pouted, making his mother sigh. "Ryuka-come, I'll teach you." Took her girl delicately and guided her under the gaze of the smiling babysitter. "Izuku, it's not that bad," he murmured, admiring the woman. "I like this feeling." He wouldn't like to change these moments of peace for anything, although unfortunately there was someone about to break everything. "Ryuta, don't go," Izuku spoke sadly, holding the freckled man's leg. "Izuku, another day we continue playing." "Ryuta-kun, I need to rest too." Caressed the sad girl's head, hoping to calm her down a little. Ryuta, but he didn't like it when his babysitter left. "Ryuko honey, Midoriya-san also has a home to return to." Her daughter looked at the decaying ground. "Ryuta, then let this be your home." She spoke determinedly, surprising the green-haired man and scaring her mother a little. "Mom knows how to cook very well. I'm sure you like what she cooks. And you can keep my toys," he said seriously and sadly. "Ryuko honey, I didn't even know how to make him understand that the boy had to return home." "Izuku, listen, Ryuta-kun, I can't live here no matter how much your mother is the best cook I've ever met. Making that decision is a very big step that we can't afford." The girl pouted. She didn't like that excuse. "Plus, your mother put a protection spell so that no one but you and her can live here, so if I live here, I'll disintegrate." The girl showed a terrified face. "Ryuta mommy, remove the spell. I don't want Izuku to disintegrate," he shouted at his mother, who glared at her friend. "Ryuko, it's not something I can do so easily, honey." Her daughter was starting to get angry at so many refusals. But to do so, she would have to travel with Midoriya-san to her home. "Ryuta, seriously?" He doubted his mother very much. "Ryuko, that's why your lady has to go to sleep to also help her daughter." He nodded, running towards her room. "Izuku, what are you planning, Ryuko-san?" The blonde smiled at the boy. "Ryuko, just give me a few minutes while Ryuta falls asleep and I'll walk you home." Without further ado, she left, leaving the freckled man very confused. Izuku, seriously, you don't need to accompany me, Ryukyu. She expressed to her friend, who was getting into her vehicle. Ryuko, I promised Ryuta, and I'm not going to fail him. He smiled nervously at his friend. Plus, it will be your way of paying me for telling my daughter such a lie. The freckled man smiled nervously. Izuku, sorry for that, her friend denied, amused by the reaction. Ryuko, I forgive you if you get into the car. With a sigh, the green-haired man entered somewhat uncomfortably. There wasn't much they asked to talk about on the trip, they just listened to music while letting everything happen. The green-haired man lived somewhat far from her, so the trip was a bit long until they reached the apartment complex where the freckled man lived. Ryuko, wow, I haven't been to one of these buildings in a long time, he said, approaching his friend's house. I remember that at university he lived in one to save everything that Kiko didn't use. Izuku, you start somewhere, right? He commented with a smile, noticing something at his door. It's open, he murmured somewhat tensely. Ryuko, is something wrong, Midoriya-san? She approached, looking at the paralyzed boy. Izuku, nothing. Just before he could continue, the door suddenly opened. What time is this to be getting home? They both looked inside where a brunette girl stood with a rather deep blush on her face. You took so long, Izuku. I'm tired. Akakoshi, who is this girl? She said angrily, giving a very bad image for the blonde. Ryuko, is she your girlfriend? She said with a smile, although quite deeply wounded. Izuku, oh no, she's the brunette stepped forward as if she were protecting the freckled one, despite being smaller than him. Ochako, nobody's taking Izuku away from 1,000. Not even a home-wrecking cat. She shouted, quite red. Izuku, very good, that's enough. He dragged the girl inside without much effort to close the door in her face, which was uncomfortable. Ryuko, she looks very emotional. She smiled tensely at the situation. Izuku, very good, that's enough. He dragged the girl inside without much effort to close the door in her face. How uncomfortable. Ryuko, she looks very emotional. She smiled tensely at the situation. Izuku, I'm sorry about that, she's not usually that dramatic with anything, she's probably over the top. That's all, he said somewhat tensely. Ryuko, you have a very protective girlfriend, huh? She said tensely. Izuku, oh no, she's not my girlfriend, Ochako is my best friend and almost my sister. Smiling, she commented, I would never think about messing with her, she would feel strange. Ryuko, oh, I see. She felt a rather strange relief when she heard those words. In that case, I'm glad I didn't cause an argument between the two of you. She smiled calmly at the freckled man who returned the gesture. Izuku, thank you for bringing me, Ryuko-san. The woman nodded quite animatedly. And by the way, the freckled man approached and kissed her cheek, leaving her quite dazed for a second. My revenge for the last time, he whispered in her ear before entering the house. Ryuko, yes, he smiled foolishly with a blush before coming to and leaving there. Sighing to calm down, she looked towards her living dining room where Ochako was, half asleep and with many cans of beer surrounding her. It was quite clear what had happened. Her bosom friend had been drinking for who knows what time, and in the state she was in, she was a Swiss Army knife with illogical and foolish actions, so she approached calmly, waking up the girl, who looked at him angrily. Izuku, you've drunk a lot. Her friend turned her face away. Drinking more, Ochako. Ochako, I'm not going to talk to you, she commented angrily, taking another sip. Izuku, please don't test my patience. Tried to stay calm. Ochako, you want to change me now, don't you? He accused the freckled man, who let out another sigh. Why are all boys this terrible? He bellowed sadly. You weren't like that, you were a sweet child who always took care of me. Why? He began to cry, testing the boy's patience a little. Izuku, now that it happened, he sat next to her and instantly the brunette clung to him, crying on her shoulder. Ochako, Kentaro stole my idea and my project, and they approved it, and I wanted to defend myself, but someone else got involved and he cried more on his friend's shoulder, who just stroked his hair calmly. I hate all of Ishikal. Izuku, it's over, the girl continued crying silently while leaning on her friend. Ochako, forgive me for appearing out of nowhere. I called Inko, and he gave me your address and I didn't know where to go, he murmured sadly. Sorry for ruining your night with your girlfriend. He cried again, making the green-haired man tense. Izuku, what do you think I was going to do? Who do you take me for? he said, red as a strawberry. Ochako, it's what that girl is your type, right? He left looking at the living strawberry. The last time I also ruined your night with that blonde girl at university. The freckled man let out a sigh. Izuku, that was different. Ochako, Melissa, and I just got carried away because she had a bad day with her boyfriend. If you hadn't shown up at that moment something bad would have happened, she spoke, trying to calm down. Ochako, and what about today? She asked, a little scared. Izuku, Rukosen is my friend, she was just accompanying me home, we weren't going to do that, for God's sake. Her friend looked at her a little dizzy. Ochako? Izuku, for God's sake. He let out another sigh, trying to. Ochako, bathroom. Without further ado he ran towards the bathroom, leaving his friend nervous. Calm down, Rukosen and I. He imagined it for a few seconds, giving each other a passionate kiss before quickly denying, what the hell am I thinking? He slapped himself hard to control himself. Izuku, my revenge for the last time, I whispered in his ear. Ryuko, what the hell am I thinking? Going crazy once again, she hit her face against the pillow, completely upset by the green-haired boy's actions 2 nights ago. It was so she remembered well the smile he gave her before leaving behind that door, which made her blush. Ah! Ryuta, mommy, Aunt Rumi has arrived. His daughter shouted from the sofa where the white-haired girl was already eating sweets. Ryuko, just now, she murmured tensely. She knew well that her friend would detect the change she had compared to the last time they saw each other. Tell Rumi that I'm sick. Ryuta, but it's not true, he expressed to his mother, who sighed. Ryuko, it's just a white lie, Ryuta. Nothing will happen. He smiled, trying to convince his girl Ryuta, but Izuku said that if I lie, my nose grows, and I don't want to. Pouted at his mother, who let out a sigh. Ryuko, because you had to be so good at being a babysitter, he cursed in a low voice. It's not a lie, darling. If I have an illness, and if Rumi sees me, it would be worse. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi. He ran towards the living room to prevent his mother from having something bad happen to him. Rumi, I already heard, brat, and that's impossible. The white-haired girl burst into her friend's room, quite irritated. Ryuta, no, Aunt Rumi. He pushed the white-haired girl's leg, which didn't move. Rumi, we have to talk now, he said seriously. Ryuko, Rumi, now is not the time. I'm busy. And her friend took the blonde girl in her hands and showed a folder to the woman. What is this? When she saw what was there, her blood froze. What, where did you get this? He spoke fearfully. Rumi, Dad is still involved in legal matters, and this came to his desk, he said seriously. Ryuko, he didn't really know what to do. Every word he read took his breath away. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi. With a pout, he left the room. If he couldn't make his aunt react, he knew someone who would. Ryuko, damn, Kigo. He cried silently, feeling 1,001 things. Rumi, we thought she was gone after failing with your broccoli, but it was the other way around. Her friend was about to tear the papers in her hands. We should call Dad and have him advise us what to do. He already helped us with Ryuta 4 years ago. He can surely help again. Ryuko, leave me alone for the moment, okay? I don't want to hear anything, she spoke irritably. Rumi, good, but recover quickly. This can't stay like this. Her friend nodded seriously. Until the moment Ryuta called Izuku, it was always because the girl misinterpreted the situation. It could be that this time he had done it too, and to confirm the girl's crazy story, he called the mother directly, but she didn't answer, which seemed quite curious. So he kept trying a couple of times until it was clear that she wasn't going to answer, so he went to the little family's house hoping that everything was okay. Izuku, Rukosen? He knocked on the door gently, waiting for them to open. Ryutakin said something about Rumi making you sick and how you didn't respond. Rumi, I don't do that. The woman opened the door, red as a tomato. Izuku, oh, hello Rumi, how are you? He spoke as if nothing had happened to the white-haired girl. Is Rukosen okay? Story continues below. Rumi, it's something complicated. He let out a sigh, stepping aside, he passed by and explained it to the white-haired girl. The green-haired man listened so calmly, somewhat surprised to see Ryuta. Izuku. The girl clung to the green-haired man's leg, smiling quite a bit. Stop, Aunt Rumi, again. She's making Mom sick. His aunt looked at him with some anger. Rumi, I already told you it's not that, he bellowed with shame. Izuku, so what's happening? The white-haired girl sighed. Rumi, it's complicated, and it's something Ryuta shouldn't know. The girl pouted indignantly. Ryuta, and why not? He spoke angrily. Rumi, it's too much for you, and even more so at that age. The girl looked down indignantly. So please go to your room. Ryuta, but the freckled man stroked the green-haired man's hair. Izuku, I'll try to explain to you later, okay? The girl nodded, quite annoyed, and then walked to her room and locked herself in. Rumi, it's impressive how you can control her. The freckled man smiled tensely. Anyway, since you already know about Ryuko's stupid ex, everything becomes easier. Izuku, now what did the stalker do? He commented tiredly. Rumi, he sues Ryuko for custody of Ryuta on the grounds that the girl doesn't have enough to live on. The freckled man was quite surprised. She is quite irritated, and I don't blame her. The last time they fought over Ryuta, it was difficult to make the jury understand that Kigo wasn't fit to take care of anyone. Ryuta almost died because of it. Izuku, can I go see her? The white-haired girl thought about it for a few seconds. Rumi, I highly doubt he wants to talk to anyone right now, but if you think you can survive, the green-haired man nodded, walking towards the older blonde's room. Izuku, Ruko-san, can I come in? She spoke calmly without getting a response. Look, I understand that you want to be alone, and I know that I can't even imagine what you are feeling right now, but if you allow me to say it, I don't think it's a good idea to lock yourself up in such a way. That's not how you deal with things. You've shown me before. And before continuing, the door opened, surprising the freckled man, who did not hesitate to enter. The woman looked at the ceiling in complete silence, remembering that court 4 years ago, the sweet words that Kigo said to convince everyone present that he was a man more than capable of taking care of a girl, in exchange for a good sum of money, of course, was at that time he tried in every way not to be taken away. He shouted, he fought and did everything in his power. That the girl wouldn't be in his clutches and everything was in vain, he had to share custody, and the rest, as they say, is history. Ryuko, aren't you going to say anything? She spoke coldly. She didn't have to treat the green-haired man that way, she knew it well, but she was really angry. Izuku, I doubt that anything I say can really make you concentrate, he responded calmly. I'm here to support you, Ruko-san, and I'm not going to leave until you're in better condition. The woman looked at him with some anger before looking at the ceiling again. Ryuko, why? The freckled man raised his eyebrow curiously. Why does he have to come and destroy everything I have achieved, everything I have created, my efforts, my dedication? I did everything so that he could never find us, and yet he clenched his fists tightly. Izuku, Ruko-san, he slowly approached the woman, who instantly clung to him in a rather strong hug. Ryuko, Ryuta doesn't suffer from any illness, always has a plate full of food, has the best of spirits, and why one wanted him to go to school next year. She is not careless at any time, but still she cried on the green-haired man's chest, who only caressed the woman's blonde hair. Izuku, everything will be fine, Ruko-san, he whispered to the woman, who couldn't stop crying. Ryuko, nothing will go right with that damn silver tongue and perfect smile. He shouted angrily. Izuku, no matter how much silver tongue, the actions always say more than the words themselves, and I am sure that his actions over the years will give more weight than any lie that can come out of him. The woman looked at him somewhat doubtfully. Ryuko, do you think I can do it? The freckled man grabbed her cheeks, wiping away a tear with his thumb. Izuku, I'm pretty sure Ryuta will continue with you. She smiled at the woman, who seemed somewhat dazed just before she could finish. The woman closed the space between them, giving them a kiss. She barely registered what was happening. Ryuko, why did I do it? Why does it feel so good? Why don't I want it to stop? Her mind was a jumble at that moment. Ah yes, I love how he does things and takes care of us. That affection she hadn't felt for too long, and that with that simple kiss warmed her heart. At some point night came, and they both spent hours simply hugging without saying a word or offering an explanation for the kiss they shared. Ryuko was consumed by 1,001 thoughts that could only be resolved by tightening her embrace with Izuku. The freckled guy didn't mind being the blonde's human pillow, he was quite comfortable in her bed. Izuku, Ruko-san, the woman clung closer to him, trying to prolong their time together even longer. I understand that you don't want to talk about it, and I'm seriously not going to mention any of that, but she squeezed him again, a little tighter. Ryuko, I don't want to talk, he murmured. Comfortably listening to the green-haired man's heart. I don't want to go crazy for doing what I did. I don't want to face Kiko again. I don't want to hear Rumi make fun because he was right. He looked into the green-haired man's eyes for a moment before using his chest as a pillow again. Izuku-kosen, he murmured, trying not to go crazy because of how adorable the woman seemed to him. Rumi, very good lovebirds. I already let them spend a lot of time and the girl is starting to get nervous, so leave your love nest and show your face. He abruptly opened the door, revealing both of them lying in bed. Wow. They don't waste time, huh? She smiled mockingly at the couple, who remained quite tense. Izuku, Rumi isn't what she seems. He smiled tensely at the white-haired woman, who leaned back in the doorway, amused by the situation. Rumi, I understand that being alone for years has you quite frustrated and eager to share your bed, but bringing your daughter's nanny for that? Seriously, friend, you have a problem. She mocked the blonde, who was red-faced and squeezing the human pillow she had even tighter. Tighter. Ryuko, could you please come out? She spoke nervously, amusing her friend even more. Rumi, just don't delay any longer, the brat is about to cry. Her friend nodded slowly. Izuku, you can't escape anymore, he murmured mockingly to the blonde, who pouted adorably. Oh, then Ryudikin took out everything adorable about you, didn't he? The woman turned red again like a tomato. Ryuko, don't play with me, he complained, quite happy about the situation. Izuku, walking, Rukosen, you have your daughter worried. The woman nodded, sighing. Ryuko, thank you for staying with me for a whole day, I needed it, she said, regretfully letting go of the freckled man and getting out of bed. Izuku, I'm glad I helped you, the woman smiled, stealing another kiss that left her quite red. Ryuko, payment for your service today. With a better smile, she left the room to go to her daughter. It wasn't easy to calm her daughter down, and it didn't help much that Rumi told her a lot of nonsense just for the sake of joking and gave the girl one or another absurd idea that her babysitter had to keep her mom pretty warm and close for maximum recovery. It was quite difficult to make the girl understand that things weren't as she thought. Izuku, are you feeling okay, Ryudikin? He stroked the hair of the juice-drinking girl with a smile. Rutachi, thank you for healing Mom, Izuku. He hugged the freckled man who smiled softly. Rumaluk, they already look like father and daughter. She made fun of her friend who let out a denying sigh. What was her friend saying? Ryuko, he wouldn't be able to entangle Izuku in this, he murmured back. Rumi, well, I see him quite happy and comfortable taking care of the brat and saying good morning to you. She raised her eyebrows to her friend who turned red. Ryuko, Rumi yelled in a whisper, causing her friend to laugh. Izuku, is something wrong? Girl and adult looked at the friends who were quite static. Ryuko, it's okay, she smiled tensely, waiting for her friend to leave him there. Rumi, oh of course yes, her friend looked at her nervously. Ryuta, you love human broccoli very much, right? The girl tilted her head confused. I mean Izuku. You love him very much, right? Ryuta, yes. He gives me sweets and prepares food as delicious as Mom's, teaches me a lot about dragons, and takes great care of me. He smiled animatedly at both women. Izuku, what are you planning? He murmured, doubting both. Rumi, and wouldn't you like me to always be here for you and your mom? The girl nodded animatedly, making the couple tense. Ryuko, Rumi, the white-haired girl smiled sideways at the lively girl. Ryuta, it would be the best in the world. He responded without considering the green-haired man next to him, who seemed totally amazed. Rumi, you know there is a way for Izuku to do it? The girl approached her aunt curiously. Ryuta, how? As? I was very excited. Rumi, you have to make your mother understand that Izuku is the perfect man for her. The girl didn't quite understand what her aunt was saying. Ryuta, perfect man? His aunt nodded, smiling, ignoring the blushing, freckled man and the blonde who covered her face with her hands from the shame she felt. Rumi, that's right, I doubt she will find someone who cares so much about her in life. I once had to see her. Very, very badly. The girl was very scared that time. A very annoying guy had made her suffer like no one else, and I honestly never thought I would see her happy again, but he smiled, looking at the freckled man. When he arrived after his departure with the broccoli, I knew he had found his cure, so, for his own good, he needs him, even if he wants to let him go. Ryuta, Mom wants to let Izuku go? he commented sadly. Ryuko, no, honey, it's not what you think. She approached her daughter, already tired of her friend giving her ideas. Izuku also has quite a few dreams and hopes, and things to do, and if she stays here, will only be a break, she commented, somewhat broken. No matter how much it seems, I'm suffering, I'm fine. It's not necessary for him to stay or anything alone. Before continuing, he felt how they held his head. When looking at the freckled man who was looking seriously, Izuku, so you think my dreams can't be achieved because I have a relationship with you? The woman looked down while Ryuta looked attentively at the freckled man. For God's sake, I guess I already know. One of your faults, Ryuko-san, you assume things too much. Ryuko? But it's the truth. If we had a relationship, it wouldn't just be with me, you would have to accept, Ryuta, and I know that many go backwards with the simple fact of having a child. No matter how much you work as a babysitter, I don't think you want to be a father. He spoke with some sadness. Ryuta, what is Aunt Rumi's father? He whispered to his aunt, who gave him a hand to silence her. Rumi, so you ask, now observe. He withdrew with the girl while the freckled man left the woman, who didn't feel able to get up. Izuku, Ryuko, your daughter has never seemed like a burden to me. Far from it, seeing her every day is incredible, and seeing you every day has become one of the most amazing things that could happen to me. The woman blushed at what the green-haired man said. Yes, it is true that I have projects and dreams, but it does not mean that I cannot include you or Ryuta in them. The woman looked up, surprised. Ryuko, It was barely what came out of his mouth. Izuku, it may sound a little silly since we kissed and spent the whole day together, but would you like to try it? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. Ryuko, me of course. He threw himself at the boy, knocking him down and falling on his lips. Rumiog hugged the girl who was a little confused. Ryuta, you already have a dad. Ryutai, she looked at her aunt quite confused, she didn't understand anything. Ochako, is that girl your girlfriend? He didn't quite understand his friend. Izuku, yes. You were right about me liking blondes. The brunette let out a sigh. Ochako, but she has a daughter. The freckled man nodded as if it weren't a big deal. You've always liked taking responsibility, and to be honest, I didn't think you'd have a daughter this way. Izuku, I still don't think Ryuta calls me that. He doesn't know what a father is, and teaching him is going to be difficult, not to mention the ex. He let out a rather tense sigh. Ochako, one thing at a time. The freckled man nodded. That's what you've always taught me. If you focus on one task, you finish before doing all of them at the same time. Izuku, you're right. I need to calm down and start helping Ryuko-san with Kigo, he said, motivated. By the way, what happened to the theft of your idea? The brunette let out a rather tense sigh. Ochako, give me a beer. This was going to be a long time. Ryuko would always be extremely grateful to Rumi's father. She helped him a lot with Ryuta's legal issue and gave him the necessary advice to keep his daughter away from the cruel father she had. Although she didn't like giving the old man work, she didn't know anyone better for this situation. Rumi, aren't you going to help her? He glared at his father, who didn't seem affected. But Dad. Calm down, little bunny, it's not what you think. She smiled at her daughter, who pouted angrily at her father. I'm sorry to have to disappoint you, Ryuko, but someone wants your case and took it before I could do anything. Ryuko, anyone? I don't think I feel comfortable with anyone other than you. You know me well, and I highly doubt anyone can help that much. The man smiled at both women. Believe me, I wouldn't let him if I didn't know he was good at helping, mainly because it was someone close to this person who influenced Kigo to do this nonsense. The blonde was quite surprised by that information. Rumi, wait, so this wasn't that idiot's idea? That made her a little angrier. According to what we know, not entirely, there was someone who was by Kigo's side and instructed him in legal matters that he has a direct relationship with his daughter. Got up from her seat, mortally serious. Rumi, and who was the stupid one who guided Kigo? She spoke coldly. Because I'm going to send him to the hospital for a long time. He declared angrily. Ryuko, Rumi, don't rush. Her friend looked at her angrily. You don't know what could have happened for that guy to be with Kigo. Rumi, but her friend denied. I agree with that, Rumi. Don't rush to conclusions. Her daughter looked away indignantly. You're very good with your fists, but not with your words. You can't solve this like that. Rumi, only if the police don't catch me. Her father raised an eyebrow, somewhat irritated. Well, I'll stay still. Ryuko, thank you, he murmured somewhat calmly. As I was saying, Todoroki Enji was the one who took your case, so you have to go with him, and luckily he's willing to charge little for it. Both women nodding. Ryuko, thank you very much for all the help. She bowed before leaving father and daughter alone. Rumi, well, I'm leaving. Ryuko surely needs me, and her father put his hand tightly on the table. Do you and I have to talk, or don't you think? The white-haired girl stopped dead with fear. What is this about going to hit without knowing? I don't think I raised you for that. Rumi, sir, she spoke softly, quite tense. It would be a long afternoon for her. The name didn't sound familiar to him. If someone close to Mr. Todoroki was on Kiko's side, he could speculate about it and even be able to use it against his ex if necessary. He needed to use all the resources at his side to prevent history from repeating itself. Not to mention that he hadn't yet spoken to his lawyer to find out how the hell to act at this time. He was very grateful that he was in the same building as Rumi's father because the questions were eating him away, and he didn't think he could bear much. And Jizo, you are Mrs. Tatsuma? Nice to meet you. They shook hands quite seriously and then sat down. I'm going to get straight to the point. When I found out about this case, I immediately pushed it aside, and I'm not going to lie to you. I've investigated your story long before receiving the case. Ryuka, can I know the reason? He didn't like how the conversation began. Enjimi, oldest son, called a while ago to ask about you. He wanted me to help his friend get partial or total custody of his daughter. The woman opened her eyes nervously. It should be noted that I did not accept that. My son is a liar, and at this point, it is certain that everything that comes out of his mouth has ulterior motives. Ryuko-en, can I know why your son is with Kigo? He asked with quite a bit of anger in his voice. Enji, I don't know for sure. We've been fighting for years, but I can say that it's probably her ex's provider. The blonde let out a sigh. Of course, that would be it. Ryuko, thank you for accepting my case. Mr. Todoroki spoke coldly, although I would like to say something. Before starting to work with you, the man nodded calmly. It wasn't the first time he had set conditions for him. I am not going to risk Ryuta being with Kigo in the same room. I will do everything necessary to prevent that meeting from happening. Enji, it seems perfect to me, and I think I have the solution for that. He opened a drawer and took out a folder. According to Kigo Takami's file regarding the last incident with his daughter, we can make a deal with the main judge so that he cannot meet with Ryuta Tatsuma. Ryuko, thank you very much. He closed his eyes, calming down. Now, how will we act in front of him? Enji, as far as I understand, he plans to defend his case alone, which means he doesn't have a legal team accompanying him. We can do various things before the jury, although the main thing now is to gather as much evidence as possible about the girl's condition and her caregivers, be as sincere as possible before the law, so I feel obliged to ask about your social circle. Is there anyone who could be potentially dangerous for the girl? The woman grimaced, which was a bad sign. Ryuko, my best friend, gets into too much trouble with blows. She is temperamental and very explosive. She lowered her tense gaze. Then there is my partner who demonstrates martial ability of the highest level. Enji, is he a professional at that? The blonde denied that it could be a problem. Ryuko, I am aware of this, but at the same time, he is the person who takes the most care of Ryuta after me. He protects her, feeds her, and more. I would never do anything to hurt her. I'm sure. The redhead wrote everything in a notebook. What the woman said. Enji, is the girl comfortable in the environment she lives in? The woman nodded again. Ryuko, he is in good health and has good food. He lacks nothing. The redhead looked at some leaves on his desk before continuing. Enji, the main accusation is that Ryuta isn't in any school. He doesn't seem to have the same learning capacity as the rest of the children. The woman sighed. Ryuko, because of Kigo, I've been keeping her at home, teaching her everything possible, and even my partner has helped me with that. The redhead nodded, having an idea. Angie, do you think the girl can pass a basic knowledge test on a boy her age? The woman nodded, making the redhead smile. I think that with that test, we can get on the right foot before Mr. Takami. Ryuko, I'm glad to hear that the redhead started typing more on his computer to get things done as quickly as possible. Angie, I just need her to be prepared. The woman nodded decisively. Everything was going relatively well. Ryuko was exasperated teaching her daughter the basics of math, writing, and so on. It was easy for her daughter to learn thanks to her boyfriend, but she seriously struggled with math. Ryuko, no, honey, not like that. She let out a sigh, making her daughter nervous. Let's try once again, okay? Her daughter pouted irritably at what they were doing. Izuku, very good. That was enough for the moment. The green-haired man entered the room with 2 glasses of ice cream. Here you have, Ryuta-kun, for your effort. He placed the ice cream in front of the girl, who smiled. Instantly, forgetting everything. Ryuta, thank you, Izuku. He began to eat without worries before his mother's irritated gaze. Ryuko, hey, we're busy right now. Can't you bring desserts later? She asked, as irritated as her daughter did a moment ago. Izuku, here's yours, lemon that I know you like a lot. The blonde imitated her daughter by drinking the glass of ice cream and eating at the same time as her daughter. Ryuko, it's delicious. She spoke with her mouth full, causing a small laugh in her boyfriend. Wait, we shouldn't be eating, she came to, looking angrily at her boyfriend. We have a lot to cover, and she didn't even finish speaking thanks to her boyfriend giving her ice cream. Izuku, you eat calmly. Is it time for me to take the reins, okay? Kissing her boyfriend's head, she turned to the girl. Do you feel better, Ryuta-kun? The girl nodded with her cheeks full of ice cream. Ryuta, thank you. Ryuko, the freckled man, stroked the girl's hair. Izuku, it's nothing. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable with all this, since it is very necessary and important. The girl looked at the table irritably. Ryuta, but I don't want to, it's very boring. The green-haired man smiled understandingly. Izuku, I understand that this is not fun, but I know a way to make it less boring. Would you like to try it? The girl nodded doubtfully. Come, I'll teach you how mom devours ice cream. Ryuko, oh. He complained, eating ice cream. In the afternoon, the girl was delighted doing the exercises put on by the freckled man with a big smile. She didn't know that mathematics could be so simple and fast. His girlfriend was quite surprised to see the little girl completely busy. Ryuko, it's very good. It's official, you're a magician. Her boyfriend smiled nervously at such an accusation. How do you make Ryuta enjoy things he hates? Izuku, it's not a talent or magic, it's simply the way things are explained. His girlfriend smiled, interested in what the green-haired man said. It's something I learned from mom and dad. When I didn't understand a topic, they always explained it to me with comics and heroes. It helped me understand things. Ryuko, another angle to see, she murmured to herself. Izuku, correct. If you want Ryuta-kun to know how to handle situations, you have to teach him that there is more than one way to handle things. The blonde smiled, hugging the freckled man. Ryuko, I don't know what I did to deserve you, but thank you for being present. The freckled man returned the hug, smiling. Izuku, I don't think there is any universal force that has intervened. It was just luck that our paths crossed. He delicately grabbed the blonde by the chin, getting lost in those eyes that seemed to hypnotize her. Ryuko, then how lucky I am. She rose a little, feeling her breathing on her. Izuku. Ryuko, his mouth felt quite dry at that moment. His girlfriend's lips were very perfect, and he didn't think she would get angry if she tried them a little. Story continues below. Ryuko, I felt a magnetic attraction towards the boy. Ryuta, I finished. He smiled, turning to his mother and his babysitter who looked quite red. Something happens? Ryuko, nothing at all, honey, smiled tensely, sitting on her boyfriend's lap. Izuku, if everything is completely fine, Ryuta-kun, in fact, for doing all your tasks, will I grant you a wish? Agreement? The girl looked at him excitedly. Ryuta, whatever I want. The freckled man nodded. Okay. Then I want you to stay, he spoke, leaving both adults stone. Izuku, huh? The girl began to play with her fingers quite nervously. Ryuko, but honey, her daughter looked down. Ryuta, I know it's not your home, but I feel happy when he's here, and Aunt Rumi said that's what it feels like to have a dad, and he didn't want the freckled man to leave, he had become quite fond of him. Ryuko honey hugged her daughter, who was sobbing. Izuku Ryutakin, she smiled to approach mother. And daughter, if that's what you want, it's my duty to give you that reward. The girl looked excitedly at the green-haired man. Ryuta, are you seriously staying? The freckled man nodded. And will you read me stories? He nodded again. Well, Ryuko, are you sure? She spoke nervously. You still have to go home, and she will say, you know. The freckled man smiled. Izuku, don't worry, I know you understand. The woman smiled, somewhat tense, just thinking about the two of them sleeping in the same bed. Ryuta, yes. The green-haired man giggled while his girlfriend went crazy in silence. When night fell and she was getting ready to sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about all the possible scenarios she was going to go through that night. She had memories of her last night with a boy and how distressing it was for her. She was still haunted by the memories of her ex who put her against the bed and kissed her furiously while forcing her to take everything off to enjoy a rather fiery moment. She knew that her current boyfriend wouldn't be that beastly, but she still had some fear of crossing that barrier with him. Izuku, are you feeling okay? The woman came to, looking at the green-haired man, wearing a short-sleeved shirt and the shorts he was wearing that day. Ryuko, huh? If only he let out a sigh. It's the first night we spent together, and the freckled man understood where all that was going, so he only hugged him from behind. Izuku, do you want to do it with me? The woman, paralyzed, looking down and thinking of an answer. Ryuko, I don't know, I'm afraid of what might happen, of what you will do, he murmured in fear. Izuku, Ryuko, I can be your boyfriend, but above all, I respect you a lot. He caressed the blonde's belly, who blushed a little. If you don't want to cross that line, I still respect him. What attracted me to you wasn't just your body, it was all about you, your personality, your goals and ambitions. I'm not going to leave you because we don't. He hugged his girlfriend a little tighter, who smiled, blushing. Ryuko, thank you, Izuku. She leaned on him for a moment before letting go. I'm going to change, so please don't look, she said, embarrassed. Izuku, only as far as you allow me to see, he responded, leaving the blonde blushing. Ryuko, okay. Without further ado, he entered his private bathroom to do his nightly routine, in which the freckled man lay down on the bed in disbelief of what he was experiencing. Izuku, breathe, Izuku Midoriya. Nothing will happen. Tonight. I'm not going to get turned on and have an awkward moment with my girlfriend. I'm an adult and I know how to control myself. He said to himself, trying to maintain his composure. Ryuko, ready? The blonde came out and instantly that composure was gone. I hope you don't mind me sleeping like this, she said somewhat nervously. Izuku, no, don't worry. He smiled nervously. His girlfriend was wearing a fairly loose shirt and shorts that barely covered her perfect legs, not to mention that he could perfectly see 2 buttons on her chest through the fabric of the shirt. Tonight will be eternal. Ryuko, in that case, good night, Izuku. She lay down next to the green-haired man, keeping a little distance. Izuku, good night, Ryuko. He lay down on the bed trying not to see his girlfriend and keep his word. Ryuko. Izuku, the freckled man, paralyzed in his position. Thank you for being here today, Izuku. It was nothing, it's always a pleasure to help. He smiled without looking at the blonde, who turned around and hugged him from behind, closing her distance. Ryuko, thank you. The freckled man was actually retaining his primitive impulse, but it was difficult for him. Izuku, don't worry, I'll always be there for you. He turned around and reciprocated the hug. Ryuko and Izuku, they looked directly into each other's eyes, feeling the spark of the afternoon again. Izuku, Ryuko. The woman stretched a little, bringing her face closer to the freckled man's, rubbing her body against her boyfriend's. Ryuko, I was starting to feel hot. Izuku, we shouldn't do this. He stopped her before they shared the kiss that would cause everything I promised you. Everything. Without another word, she invaded the boy's mouth with a wild kiss that he returned. Ryuko, as far as I let you see, right? He whispered against her lips. Then I give you permission to see. Every kiss was driving her crazy, not only because she liked her boyfriend's lips too much, but also because the memories of that night returned, and she began to react to them, pushing her boyfriend away slightly. Izuku, are you sure you want to continue? I don't want to force you into something you don't want, he whispered close to her lips. Ryuko, I'm a little scared. If I'm honest, Kiko still torments my thoughts, he commented sadly. I'm sorry if I let you down. Izuku, that will never happen, he took her chin delicately, smiling calmly at the blonde. I understand that you went through something that wasn't to your liking, but if you allow me, he stole a quick kiss from her, making her shudder. Let me change your bad memories with something much better, he whispered while holding her hip. Ryuko, Izuku, he whispered with a rather noticeable blush on his face, please make me forget. He hung on the freckled man's neck, stealing a deep kiss. The freckled man's hands began to go up and down his girlfriend's soft back, tasting every inch of skin he could touch. He didn't want to do anything too invasive because of how nervous the blonde seemed, so he was content with these deep kisses and hot touches. Slowly they broke that passionate kiss, releasing eager sighs. Their minds began to cloud. It was difficult not to continue with such a temptation. The freckled man watched as his girlfriend breathed heavily while that shirt revealed a lot of her breasts, not to mention that when he looked down, I could see the shorts pressing against the area I most wanted to see. For her part, Ryuko was about to let herself go. Her boyfriend looked at her very eagerly. His shirt could barely withstand what was underneath, and she didn't even dare to look underneath because she felt it perfectly against her entrance. Even through the fabric, she felt a lot of pressure. Ryuko, Izuku, her fear and excitement were confusing her. Izuku, relax, let it flow. He kissed the blonde, who shed a tear accepting what they were about to do. In a quick movement, the woman took off her shirt, leaving her breasts exposed, ready to go further with the green-haired man who, smiling, approached one, giving a warm kiss that made her moan quite sweetly, then gave another and another. In the end, she began to taste the woman's breasts, who was trying to contain her moans due to the presence of her daughter in the house. Her boyfriend's tongue was taking her to heaven, making her forget almost any thought she had at that moment. When she stopped feeling pressure on them, she looked at her boyfriend, who came up to steal a kiss from her, making them change their position. Now he was the one on top of her while she let his fingers run over her entire upper area. Izuku, I love you, Ryuko, he spoke, making the woman smile. Ryuko, and I love you, she put her hands on his chest, smiling. Let's continue until the end. The green-haired man took off his shirt, leaving his girlfriend completely red-faced. He really liked the green-haired man's body. Izuku, are you ready for what's next? He whispered affectionately, his fingers on the edge of his shorts, about to take the final step. Ryuko, yes, I want to do it. She stole one more kiss from her boyfriend, who removed the last thing holding the blonde, leaving her completely naked in front of the green-haired man, who looked at her with admiration. Do I look so bad? She joked a little when she saw that the boy didn't react. Izuku, on the contrary, you are the most beautiful goddess that my eyes have ever witnessed. Smiling, he also took off the little clothes he had, showing himself completely naked in front of her. I don't want you to regret it. He got closer to the blonde, who looked down. Her entrance and her boyfriend's tool were almost touching. Ryuko, if it's with you, never. She made them rub against each other, causing an electric current in both of them. Izuku, in that case, held the blonde by the hips, entering her slowly. Ryuko, a sweet moan came out of his mouth at the great thing that was making its way inside him, moving everything and adapting everything to him. Izuku, she blurted out excitedly. 2. Izuku, Ryuko, he felt too good inside her. Ryuko, make my body forget it, she begged, clinging to him when he was completely inside her. Izuku, your wish is my command, my sweet dragon. With a kiss, a slow back and forth began, accompanied by moans drowned by kisses. He wanted to go faster, but he knew it wasn't the time. That night, he would make his girlfriend forget everything bad about her past. He would show her what it is to make love, not a simple, carnal relationship with someone attractive. The next thing Ryuko knew, she kept saying her boyfriend's name to everything he did, not just penetrating her with great affection. His kisses and hands kept attacking her entire body, the caresses on her breasts, the playful licks on his neck, and of course, how he always held his hand, maintaining a connection he never expected to have with anyone in his life. She didn't remember what time it was when she felt the green-haired man pump his load inside her, but she did enjoy it like she never expected, nor did she think that it could have repercussions or anything. She simply let herself be carried away by that boy who gave her one of the most important, unforgettable moments in his life. Izuku Ryuko wake up, he whispered to the blonde who grimaced before covering herself more with the blanket she had. Ryuko, 5 more minutes, honey. She turned around wanting to sleep more. Izuku, upstairs, my dragon queen, breakfast is served. The woman opened one eye looking towards the green-haired man, surprised by what he was bringing. Ryuko who? Breakfast in bed. Her boyfriend giggled, placing a tray with breakfast in front of her. You shouldn't have. Izuku, seriously. Izuku, let me spoil you, okay? Last night you already gave me a lot, he smiled innocently, earning a pillow from his girlfriend. Ryuko, silly. She shouted, red with shame. Izuku, oh come on, you enjoyed it too. The woman turned her gaze even redder. If possible, that confirms it to me, whatever it is. Today we have to continue helping Ryuko with her studies. Without further ado she left the room. Ryuko, Izuku, she spoke nervously, stopping her boyfriend. Thank you because of last night, I enjoyed it like I didn't think I would. Izuku, it's the only thing he wanted. He smiled at his girl who was radiant. You deserve to be treated like a queen, and if that idiot Kigo didn't do it, I'll take care of it. I'll make you forget everything he could have done to you, and I will replace it with the best moments you have ever had. Ryuko, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I really appreciate it. Her boyfriend smiled before going out and leaving her alone in bed. You are the best boyfriend I could have found, she whispered with an adorable blush on her cheeks. The boy drove her crazy with just a couple of words, and he loved it that way. Enji was quite comfortable with what he had received as soon as he started his workday. The day before had been the girl's evaluation, and now he had the results of said test. The girl had the knowledge of a boy her age, so they could easily win there. Even so, she wasn't going to trust that. She had been in this field for so long that she knew having the advantage didn't guarantee victory in a case, and even less so in custody cases like these. I had to investigate a little more to have everything ready. Sir, a man here wants to see you. He says he is your eldest son. The secretary spoke on the phone, leaving the redhead surprised. Let it happen, Enji said seriously. He sensed what smile Tuya wanted. Hello, Dad, Tuya said, entering the office fairly calmly. Hello, Tuya. What is the reason for this visit? He spoke calmly, trying not to yell at him. Now was not the time. Tuya, wow, you're in a bad mood today, huh? His father looked at him with some annoyance. Enji, it's a pretty busy day at the office. I don't have much time for anything, you should know by now. He spoke without looking at him. Tuya, yes, I know, always committed to the job and never to anything else. A pretty low blow by his standards, but it was to be expected. How is Natsuo, by the way? Do you even know where he is? He mocked his father, who was surprisingly calm. Enji happy at a foreign university, a scholarship that made him very proud. Sometimes we talk, but he's so focused on his future that he doesn't have much time to talk. He responded as if nothing had happened, surprising his son even though he didn't show it. Tuya, I see. In Shoto? I doubt he will continue living with you after how you treated him as a child. His father stopped what he was doing for a moment to face his son. Enji, Shoto is fine, he works with one of his friends on the coast helping marine animals. He responded calmly, his son was never going to affect his morale again. Do you have any other questions, or are you letting me work? Tuya, tch. His father continued looking at the computer without giving him what he was looking for. How much do you want for giving the girl to Kigo? He asked as if that were nothing. Enji, for your sake, you better make that a joke, he responded angrily. Tuya, oh, come on, is she just another girl that matters? His father glared at him. Look, that woman has a lot of money, and Kigo owes me a big debt. If she has support, she'll give me everything she owes me, so how much do you charge to help me? His father let out a sigh, his son was indeed lost. Enji, the safety of an innocent girl is not a bargaining chip. Tuya, what kind of sick person do you think I am? He said harshly. Tuya, the kind of sick man who would give anything to win, smiled arrogantly at his father, who was about to make a mistake if he didn't shut his mouth. Come on, you and I know Kigo will win, let's save a lot and solve this here and now. Enji, if that were true, you would have no reason to come to me. He smiled when he noticed how his son was tensing his hands. No, you know that he is likely to lose, and that is why you come to me, hoping that my love for you is much greater than my responsibilities, but what do you think? You have disappointed me too much. I tried for so many years to make us become a family again that I got tired of it. His son was paralyzed by what his father Sadie gave you this last gift, but I don't want to see you again in life because, for me, you are already dead. Go away, and for your sake, we better not. Everything you've done, is that clear? His son didn't. His son looked up, visibly affected by those words. He seemed to listen to him. I said, did you understand, Tuya? Tuya like water, Dad spoke somewhat hurt, hoping to meet again because I'll make sure you pay for. Convince him. Enji, I'm not your father. You said it yourself when you left the house and didn't come back. The black-haired man looked down at such a truth unless you want to go to a cell for obstructing an investigation. Tuya tsk. Without further ado, he left the office humiliated, leaving his father calmer. Enji, for heaven's sake, he leaned back in his chair, letting out a sigh and feeling his shoulders lighter. He felt free of an invisible chain. Now I will make sure that the girl is with those who really care about her, he typed quickly again, putting together everything necessary for the case. Rumi, confess the smoked broccoli you made, Ryuko? Threatened the green-haired man with a spoon. Izuku, now what's wrong with you? The white-haired girl closed her eyes, looking at him. Rumi, don't worry, she's too relaxed and very happy. You did something to her. He accused the green-haired man again, who sighed. Ryuko, could you please calm down? She hit her friend's head, who looked at her irritably. Rumi, but her friend smiled very sweetly, scaring the white-haired girl a little. Good. Ryuta, Izuku, are you going to stay again today? The girl clung to the leg of the green-haired man, who smiled fondly. Izuku, will see, Ryuta-kun. I have to do something first. The girl seemed sad. Rumi, wait, did she stay the night? Her friend smiled tensely, confirming the worst. You. He pointed at the freckled man, who smiled calmly. Izuku, yes, I stayed the night with Ryuko and I can say that it's comfortable to hug her. I felt warm and let out a sigh, comfortable next to her. He smiled, making his girlfriend. Rumi, yeah, right, and I lost a leg. It's clear what they did. The freckled boy and his girlfriend looked at each other, not quite knowing how to get out of this situation. Ryuta, what did you do, Aunt Rumi? He looked at his aunt, who froze, just like the couple. Rumi, well, she looked at her friend, hoping for support. Ryuko, yes, Rumi, exactly what do you think we did? She cleverly left the white-haired woman to solve this problem. Rumi, she looked at the freckled boy, now her last hope. Izuku, yeah, what did we do, Rumi? He smiled calmly, leaving the woman completely alone in this. Ryuta, did you do something wrong? She said nervously, causing more nervousness in her aunt. Rumi, well, she looked at her friend, hoping for support. Ryuko, yes, Rumi, what exactly do you think we did? He cleverly let the white-haired girl solve this problem. Rumi, she looked at the freckled man, now his last hope. Izuku, did we, Rumi? He smiled calmly, leaving the woman completely alone in this. Ryuta, did they do something wrong? She said nervously, causing more nervousness in her aunt. Rumi, of course not, it is something relatively common in a couple, but how to say it he couldn't explain it well. Ryuko, well, since silly Rumi couldn't say it, we slept together and made love a lot, that's all, honey. The girl nodded, not seeing anything wrong with it. We didn't do anything wrong. Rumi, of course we did. How did you get to that so fast? I understand that broccoli is very good and all that, but going so fast as I didn't know how to express it with the girl present. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi is acting strange. His mother let out a giggle. Rumi, it's not fair. You're using the brat as a defense. Her friend hugged her girl, sticking out her tongue. The girl nodded, not seeing anything wrong with it. We didn't do anything wrong. Rumi, of course. How do you get to that so quickly? I understand that broccoli is very good and everything you want, but going so fast as I didn't know how to express it with the girl present. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi is acting strange. Her mother giggled. Rumi, it's not fair. You're using the brat as a defense. Her friend hugged her girl, sticking out her tongue. Ryuko, I don't know what you're talking about, You're going crazy. Her boyfriend laughed at the situation while his friend looked at him angrily. There was just over an hour left to start this legal battle for Ryuta, and the truth is I was quite confident in his words to be able to win easily. I had done it in the past. I hoped it wouldn't be so different, if it was true that he had more things in against him given his stay in prison, but he could also use that to his advantage. The incredible and amazing story of a man in redemption who seeks to reconnect with his beloved daughter sounded perfectly viable. He even got a good suit to look much more. Not only did he have to convince with words, the way he acts and dresses also influence people. He hoped it would work. As well as with the last judge, because if not, Dabi would surely he was already planning his death or something extremely worse. Kigo on hello Ryuko. He greeted his ex completely. Naturally Ryuko Kigo the blonde looked at the woman's company with irritation. Kaigo hello Rumi, you look good, the white-haired girl snorted angrily, and with the same spirit as always she looked towards the girl who was clinging tightly to her. Mother, it's exactly like her. Then she looked at the green-haired man next to her. To the blonde, what an upset neighbor, how curious he is here, he smiled. Amusedly, he had just thought of where else to attack, although I highly doubt you're really the neighbor. After all, I've never seen you stay in the building for long. The green-haired man smiled sideways. Izuku, it's true, lately I haven't been in the building for long. The blonde smiled, thinking he had the advantage. I was looking for places to live. Ryuka-kun's apartment is starting to get small, and I think Ryuta-kun needs much more space. The blonde opened his eyes somewhat incredulously. Kigo who? The freckled man acted surprised while his girlfriend didn't understand what he was doing. Izuku, you didn't know that? Wow, you're really bad. At that he held his girlfriend by the waist, surprising both his girlfriend and the blonde. Ryuka-kun and I are dating, he said, smiling and proud of their relationship. Kigo Icy spoke seriously. This was not in his plans, Izuku eyes, and now that we live together I thought it was best to get a better place to live. The blonde looked too shocked at such information. I'm sorry to have to hide this from you. Ryuka-kun wanted it to be a surprise. Ryuko, don't worry, I'm glad to know that you think of us as a family. Playing along with her boyfriend smiled, leaving her ex more than stunned. Walking, this is not the time for talks, pushed her friend and the green-haired man as the girl moved forward with her mother. Ryuko, thank you for that, she whispered, now away from the blonde. I really thought it was going to go wrong. Rumai's very cute, but he can use this to his advantage, so if you can't verify that you are really looking for houses, everything will come crashing down on us, he said angrily to the green-haired man. Izuku, actually, if I'm looking for a house, there is very little space where I live and that starts to be overwhelming, he commented tensely. The faster he leaves his apartment the better. The time had come. The much-feared custody trial of the girl Ryuta Tatsuma had begun. Before the judge were the two parties who were asking for the infant. The incompetent father who believed he had enough to give his case alone instead of having legal help, and on the contrary the mother with her lawyer present and more than ready to give what was necessary to win. Well, the custody case for Ryuta Tatsuma comes into session. The judge looked at the blonde quite seriously. Mr. Takami, since you are the one who requested this hearing, should begin. The blonde stood up with a calm look. Story continues below. Kigo, thank you, Your Honor. The first thing I must say is the reason for calling this trial, given that it has come to my knowledge that my sweet daughter does not have the necessary studies for her age. She has never left her home, and I am sincerely afraid of what his mother can do. He spoke as a worried and nervous father, hoping to touch the sensitive side of the judge. Understand, Mr. Todoroki, your defensive spoke, taking into account what the blonde was saying. Your Honor, that is easily refutable. No more than a week ago the girl was given an exam that tested all her knowledge and concepts that she knows. I have the results in my possession. Walked to the judge, handing over a couple of sheets. Kigo, please, they're probably upset, he said tensely. Here is a copy in case you want to see them. Put other papers on the table of the blonde, who hurried to see. This is certainly quite interesting. The girl does not seem to be deficient in what she leans, he commented on the air, opting for the woman's side. Kigo, even if so, Mr. Judge, it is still not a good environment for Ryuta. After all, she is far from the outside world without any connection with anyone other than the mother and those closest to her. That can cause many mental conditions. If she couldn't go on the one hand, it would go through the mind. Objection. The reason why the girl stays away from the outside world is because of the danger that Kigo Takami represents for her safety. The judge raised his eyebrow curiously. Do you say that the girl's father is dangerous for her? The blonde was tense and nervous. That's right. He was in prison after leaving her to her fate to go have fun with a lady-in-waiting where he was found and arrested. The judge looked at the blonde very seriously. Is that true? The blonde let out a sigh, trying to calm down. Kigo, I am a changed man. The years in prison made me reflect. They made me think about someone other than myself, my daughter. I know that her mother hates me for the mistakes I made, so how do I know that she will do what is necessary to prevent me from seeing my daughter again? I would even go so far as to eliminate her if it is to not even let me meet her. She exaggerated things, trying to provoke the blonde. That's without taking into account the friendships he has. Ryuko, sorry? He murmured angrily. Kigo, that woman over there, Your Honor, pointed to Rumi, who seemed serious, is capable of sending me to the hospital permanently. What would I do if he left her with the girl? Does your friend usually visit you frequently, Mrs. Tatsuma? The blonde looked at her lawyer, who nodded. Ryuko, Rumi is there when she can. She usually leaves for weeks or even months for her job. It wasn't a lie. The white-haired girl disappeared from the map at times. Simply by following her work. Kigo still leaves the girl with other dangers. Who knows what her boyfriend can do when he doesn't see him? Now he attacked the green-haired man, who was more focused on distracting the girl from the whole thing with phone games. NG, Mr. Midoriya is someone certified in child care. He works as a babysitter, and from what I have found out from the agency to which he belongs, he is one of the best at work. His record is impeccably defended. Quite well. Kigo had evidence. Do you have to say that? He spoke nervously. It was getting out of hand. And this is a folder that recounts the report, showed the judge, who motioned for him to come closer. 12, 13, 15 families who support the work he does. Same even went so far as to exaggerate that was seen at first glance, but overall very impeccable. NG, Your Honor, it is clear that Mr. Takami presents the only thing he wants is the same as last time. He wants the money for only he will know what. He will not be able and will not want to support his own daughter. It would be a danger for the girl if she ever had one. Attacked the blonde, who was beginning to get angry. It has happened before and nothing proves that it is different this time. Kiego IV changed, really tried to defend himself as best he could. NG, how? I didn't find anything that says about his job or how to earn money. I didn't find anything about his home. Does he even have one? The blonde was about to turn red with anger. Kigoyori on, he was going to cross the line. The judge spoke. Enough that caught the attention of both parties. IV had enough that terrified the blonde. I don't have much to say. To be honest, the data provided by lawyer Todoroki is quite consistent. The girl looks quite good health, and not to mention that he does not have any knowledge deficit. Mrs. Tatsuma has a good job, and the environment that they have mentioned and of which I have had evidence is completely suitable for the girl. Kigo, but sir, I didn't even know how to continue. You, Mr. Takami, have done nothing more than accuse and say things without any sense or proof. Your desire to see your daughter may be authentic, but as you have said and shown, lawyer Todoroki was not able to protect and care for your daughter. Being a baby, nothing guarantees that he will be ready for such a responsibility. As far as I am concerned, the girl is in the perfect place. NG smiled. This was done so. Custody of Ryota Tatsuma goes to Ryuko Tatsuma, who has taken care of her, protected and taught during these years. Closed case. With a blow of his hammer, things ended up leaving an extremely happy mother and a blonde completely paralyzed. Smiling in the tranquility of her sofa, Ryuko admired her boyfriend, who was watching television in a relaxed manner. Then she looked at her daughter, who was sitting on him sleeping like a baby koala. Such a scene caused her quite a bit of tenderness. Izuku, there's nothing good, he murmured, somewhat irritated. Ryuko, she giggled, attracting the green-haired man's attention. Izuku, is something wrong, Ryuko-kun? The blonde denied with a sweet smile before getting closer to the green-haired man. Ryuko, I'm happy to be here. She leaned on the green-haired man's shoulder, feeling completely happy. I didn't think this could happen, being here, sharing an ordinary moment with someone. I always thought it would be Ryota and me alone against life. I thought there was no one for me after Kigo, he commented, closing his eyes and letting himself be carried away by the moment. Izuku, you were just closed off to others, that's all, he responded, stroking the girl's beautiful hair. If it hadn't arrived, it's more than certain that someone else would come into your life and you would have another kind of story, he said bitterly. Ryuko, I highly doubt she would ever meet someone like you. Izuku, she stood up a little and held his face lovingly. She wouldn't have accepted someone else. You illuminated my entire world and my daughter's, he smiled tenderly, blushing. The green-haired man. Izuku, and what's that for? His girlfriend began to laugh softly at such a tender reaction from the green-haired man. Ryuko, you are very adorable. The freckled man turned into a strawberry, causing more laughter from his boyfriend. The days seemed to be brighter after that day. She didn't know what happened to Kigo or how it ended, and the truth was she didn't care. She had her daughter with her, and she was never going to leave her. Izuku still continued working, taking care of other children, not so much their own since there were already many babysitters. He worked in administration, and although Ryuta didn't see him as much in the mornings or afternoons, the nights were filled with endless games with the green-haired man, and of course, it was also endless fun for the blonde with her boyfriend. Is school fun? The freckled man asked as the family went to get what they needed to start their school year. Something like that. It's somewhat complicated to explain, but it is fun, and even more so because you can make many friends. The girl didn't seem very convinced. Come on, honey, there are many things to buy. Her daughter smiled a little nervously, something not experienced by adults. Don't you want to go to Ryutakin school? The girl made a not very determined face. Ryuta, I'm scared, he murmured with some embarrassment. I don't want to get away from Mom. Ryuko, honey, you won't walk away from me. It's like when I leave you with Izuku all afternoon, only during the day and with more children you can play with her. Daughter looked at the ground unconvinced. Izuku, so what do you think of this? Let's do a little test for a week. If you have fun in that place, you will have to stay, but if on the contrary you are still this scared, you won't come back until you are ready. The girl thought about it for a moment before nodding. Well, is that a promise, okay? He extended his little finger to the girl, who put her little finger on with a smile. Ryuta, promise, he responded happily. Ryuko, they already look like father and daughter. She smiled fondly at both of them. Come on, there are many things to buy that I'm sure you'll love. She took her daughter's hand and together the three of them went to see the things. Rumi, yes, very adorable and all, but what am I doing here? She asked, irritated at being woken up so early on a Saturday. Ryuta, I want Aunt Rumi to choose. He smiled at the white-haired girl, who felt like vomiting from the cuteness. Many things to buy that you will surely love. She took her daughter by the hand, and together the three of them went to look at things. Rumi, yes, very adorable and all, but what am I doing here? She asked, irritated at being woken up so early on a Saturday. Ryuta, I want Aunt Rumi to choose. He smiled at the white-haired girl, who felt like vomiting because of the tenderness it provoked in her. Rumi, good. The girl looked at him excitedly while her friend laughed softly. Izuku, wow, you have a tender side, huh? The white-haired girl turned red at such embarrassment. Rumi, shut up. The green-haired man laughed. Ryuko, control your boyfriend. Ryuko, come on, it's not bad that you love Ryuta very much. Her friend looked at him, quite upset. Ryuta, Aunt Rumi, let's go. He grabbed the white-haired girl by the hand and guided her inside. Rumi, you ruined my reputation, brat, he murmured sadly. Ryuko, do you think he'll be okay when he enters school? Her boyfriend held her hip affectionately. Izuku, I trust Ryutakin, she is very strong, she will surely have many stories to tell us when the time comes. Without further ado, he took his girlfriend by the hand, leaving after the white-haired girl and the other girl. Walking, there is a lot to do. His girlfriend smiled, letting herself go. Night fell, and with it, the family arrived at the blonde's apartment, although now it seemed that the green-haired man lived there since he spent a lot of time in that place more than at home. In any case, the day was quite exciting for everyone, especially for the girl who seemed to be fulfilling every whim she wanted. She ended up with many pretty cool things to wear since there wasn't much left for her to go to that place that her mother said. Although it terrified her, she was sure that the green-haired man who took care of her would save her if something were to happen to her. Izuku, Ryutakin, it's time to sleep. He entered the room of the girl who was holding her dragon-stuffed animal with some force. Is something wrong? He crouched down at the girl's height and squeezed the stuffed animal. Ryuta, why do I have to go? He spoke with some sadness. I don't want to leave mommy alone. Izuku, in that place you will learn from people who know a lot, who can help you when you need it. You will learn many quite surprising things. She sat next to the girl who was still very uncomfortable with that idea. Plus, your mother will never be alone. I will always be here for her no matter what. The girl looked at him somewhat seriously. Ryuta, do you promise? The freckled man smiled. Izuku, with her heart made, gave a hug. No matter what happens, Ryuta-kun, whether you want to go study or not, I will support you. Ryuta, thanks, Daddy. He said innocently, leaving the stone green head. Izuku, looked at the girl who tilted her head. What did you say? Ryuta, Daddy? Aunt Rumi said that's what you were. Now that you don't want to be my babysitter, she pouted angrily at that last part. If you're not going to be my babysitter, you'll be my daddy, so be my daddy. She pointed at the green-haired man who smiled, on the verge of crying. Izuku, of course, darling. He hugged the little blonde girl again, who clung to him, watched by the mother who was on the verge of collapse from the tenderness of the situation. Now it's time to sleep. Okay? Ryuta shook happily. He went downstairs to go to the bathroom to change. Izuku, oh my god, I couldn't contain my happiness. Ryuko, congratulations, great daddy. The freckled boy jumped in place, looking at his girlfriend. Izuku, you took me by surprise. That's all. He stood up smiling. I'm glad to be the one to guide our little girl. Ryuko, I don't think there is anyone better for this. The woman kissed her boyfriend quite passionately. Thank you for being the guardian of this dragon, Izuku, she whispered against her lips. Izuku, thank you for allowing me to be. They gave each other another pretty warm kiss. Thus Ryuta learned about paternal love, while his mother managed to find something as special as her daughter, a jewel that will take care of her treasure as much as a dragon. Thanks for listening.